Hey everybody, I'm here with Clint Cronin, retro gaming nerd, MMA coach, and fellow IT professional nerd as well, I believe, right?
Yeah, I guess I wear many hats, I guess you'd say. Just all of the above, and probably a couple others that I forgot. Retro gaming more so because of the pandemic, and there is really no MMA or Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and work. I mean, everything happens in the same spot, just like this little corner of my world, a desk in a room in a house. Don't go outside, don't talk to people, that whole thing.
Yeah, it's so funny. I know exactly what you're talking about because I get like the retro gaming stuff, and I got my guitars, which aren't on the wall yet, and it's the same space with different worlds colliding in it. Technically, this office is
Yeah.
also the guest room in my house now, so
Oh, that's actually a good point. I wound up getting the stand-up sit-down desk for the living room, and it's funny because I'll be on a work call, which is all technical folks or people in the big data space, and I'll forget to blur the background, and someone will say, are you outside? Do you have a brick wall, or is that a Neo Geo in the background? Like, yeah, space is at a premium, just like New York City, the Bay Area, like you don't get much.
yeah, I have these centered here. So
So
for anybody watching on video, I just pulled it over so you could see the Neo Geo cab in back. It's just a standard big red machine, right?
yeah, it's a two slot. There's an Arrow City candy cab that's out of frame that there's no other place for it really.
Nice.
So I I wound up the deals were too good to pass up, and I wanted them, but I didn't actually have space for them necessarily to enjoy. So they're basically furniture right now.
Yeah, I mean, as much as this makes me sick to my stomach to say out loud, my D32 BVM was basically a tabletop for a couple of years because I try to only use it, on special occasions, but it was the only flat surface in my old apartment. So very often it was like, all right, I'm going to keep it clear and I'm never going to put anything on top of it again. And then it just was piled on top all the way to the ceiling with light stuff. I wasn't going to mess it up or anything, but yeah, so I know what you mean about things turning into furniture. But luckily it has a home now. The only thing sitting on top of it are extra input cards and a control module, so I think that's fair.
I liked your CRT wall with the projector screen. You have the whole Sunday ticket football going. I could definitely appreciate it. I was a little jealous. I'm not gonna lie. I don't have that many CRTs. Sadly, I don't have too many less than that, but they're not all the correct shape to make a configuration like that. So I'd have to build something or just get different screens or something. But
That was
yeah, it's definitely cool.
dumb luck. That was nothing but dumb luck. I was talking to Jonathan from Scanline City, the dude that did those awesome Mortal Kombat custom things, and I
Yeah.
was just kind of we just happened to be talking, and I was bitching about, oh man, I was at Home Depot with my measuring tape, and they have these metal racks, but I wasn't sure if it's gonna fit. And he's like, "Which one are you looking at?" He goes, "That's the exact same one I have. Your D32 will fit perfect in the middle." I was like, "All right." So I just bought them on a whim, and then I took everything out of storage and just kind of shoved them all in there. And then I think it was actually my wife, who is not a retro gaming nerd and could care less about this stuff, kind of was like, "Hey, that one in the middle, that's really standing out. Is that one special?" And I'm like, "No, that was just a free one I got." She goes, "Put a special one in the middle because that's where people's eyes go to." So that's when I got Jose's old G series BVM is in the top middle now and everything. So and I keep rearranging it because I'm going to keep filtering those through. But yeah, that's all just dumb luck, and I'm so glad I ended up with that.
So I was kind of wondering, have you tried turning all of them on yet, or would you need an additional circuit to be able to power all of them, or some kind of power conditioner? Or
So, I think I would feel more comfortable if I did have some kind of extra circuit out there, or at least go to two, like have a couple of extension cords and go to a couple of different breakers just to make sure. But the problem is not all of them work because some of them are in different areas of rebuilding. And also how to feed the content. I think I would need to start with component video, and then I would also need a component to like S video converter, but they don't really make those. So I would have to do like component to RGB to S video to composite to try to get them all at the same time, Or maybe if I could do a console with like Crix's Mega Color, I could have a Genesis outputting RGB and composite at the same time, and I could send that. Or I guess I could be lame and put composite to all of them, but that's not as cool. So.
Nah, that's no fun. I mean, especially when you get closer to those, 30+ inch BVMs, you don't want, I mean, we sound really spoiled right now. Context being everything. Composite to a BVM is awesome. If you just have that, you're great. But if you could feed RGB, wouldn't that be cool?
Yeah.
So
yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that, because I always try to add context to that. Because if you end up with a BVM that doesn't have an RGB card and you're waiting on one, play the shit out of it, man. That's gonna be, it'd be awesome. But at the same time, if you dropped a couple grand on a fully recalibrated, recapped BVM and you only put composite video in, that's like driving a race car and never getting out of second gear,
Yeah, it's true. I mean, I've got my crash cart set up kind of in the dining room / where I work on stuff. Before, I would just have to take out every individual item. Like I got the desoldering station, the rework, and the soldering iron, and all the different wire spools I need. And okay, we get all this ready, and then I'd have to clean up and tear it all down at the end because it's basically the same surface I would eat on or whatever.
Know that feeling.
So I finally built a little crash cart and have 14L5 on it. And so I wind up I have basically a SCART. So it's a BNC to SCART female cable that I picked up from, what's his name? Wookie
Win.
Something on eBay.
Yeah,
right?
the Wookie Win seller on eBay.
Yeah. He just made me another cable last week, actually. But so I have the SCART just sitting there so I can just plug in whatever to it to test. And then I've got my basic little RCA Radio Shack composite switch. And okay, well, let's make sure composite actually works on this thing. And we'll just test it, whatever console I'm working on at the time. Like, let's just make sure it doesn't catch on fire and it actually works and all the inputs do what they're supposed to. And there's audio and video. And I couldn't tell you how many times I just sit there and play something in composite and just zone out like, oh, I've been playing Mighty Final Fight for like an hour and just having a hell of a time. And I'm not thinking about, oh, the video quality isn't perfect or there's jail bars. I'm just having a great time playing. And so, I mean, there's so much cool tech available now for retro gaming. It's hard not to want to make everything as good as it could possibly be. But actually enjoying some of that stuff wherever it is for what it is kind of cool too. It's crazy being in Silicon Valley. You have all these tech companies and a lot of the technology out here. Like, let's talk about like a cell phone. The technology and the features that you get from a modern cell phone, it hasn't really jumped leaps and bounds over the last 10 years. But somehow the technology that goes into playing 8-bit video games, like, look, is gone like crazy in terms of innovation. Like, half of my consoles have Wi-Fi now. Like, what?
That's an excellent point.
The Mem Card Pro. I couldn't believe how spoiled I was. I got the Forever pack for the N64. I just got one.
Yeah, just gonna sit right next to me. Yep.
Plugged it in and started saving some games, and I'm thinking, well, wouldn't it be cool if they had that little single board computer in there with a little Arduino or whatever with the Wi-Fi built in, the ESP module that's likely in the PlayStation version. Is it the Mem Card Pro? And I'm just like, man, you're spoiled. You'll never have to worry about a dead battery. You're not going to lose any game saves, but yet this thing has an LCD and it has a web interface, like a little Nginx web interface, and I can download my saves and stuff. And I'm just like, this is for a console that came out like 20 something years ago. It's insane.
Yeah. I'm always impressed by what people come up with. I do have a question, though. So I agree 100% about gaming on composite, but have you ever used one of those really terrible scalers, like a pound cable or the SCART to HDMI that, it's really meant for DVD players and stuff? Have you ever used one of those?
Oh, God, yeah. Just about every version of those I've either purchased years and years ago just to see, like, hey, how is this going to work with gaming? Like, it worked trying to get some tapes to DVD or whatever, but kind of anyway. Yeah, they're terrible. It's laggy. And if someone wanted to introduce the retro gaming or the gaming they had as kids to their kids now that they're parents or something, and said, well, let's bust out the old NES or Genesis or whatever. And the first thing they found on Amazon was the pound solution. That whole first impression is ruined.
Totally agreed.
They're not going to play anymore. A lot of times they'll have a really big, like oversized TV in like my living room. It's like a 70-inch like Vizio 1080p TV that I would have replaced, but it's really big and it's really heavy, and it's just there. It just sits there. So if you plug one of those like composite HDMI pound adapters into that, it looks really bad. It's really laggy. You're way too close to a screen that big to really get the most out of any kind of retro gaming or gaming in general. I don't think people talk enough about that, because there's this thing where people just buy the biggest TV they can find. Like, oh, I went to Walmart and there's this giant box and it was only $3.99 because of Black Friday sale, and you get it home, and how big's your house for a 70-inch screen? And then you're going to try to play an 8-bit game on composite. You're not going to have a good time.
Yeah.
It's pretty terrible.
So you just hit on a couple of points. So the laggy, crappy scalers, right? Like, I can't tell you how many times I've done exactly what you did and walked up to a CRT with composite video console plugged into it and just never thought anything of it, just enjoyed the game. But the first time I tried those bad solutions, the first thing I was like, oh, great, now I gotta go manually set the aspect ratio. And I went, oh, this is actually really sharp. And then as soon as I hit the right arrow on the D-pad, I went, oh, what is that? And then as soon as I hit the jump button, I'm like, I can't even do this. I can't. And so it is totally different. You know, it's just because something's not sharp doesn't mean you can't get into it, but because of the flicker of the, you know, deinterlacing something that doesn't need to be, and the lag, that drove me nuts. And then you're totally right. And you know, I haven't talked about this enough, but too big of a TV too close absolutely makes me dizzy, even with the best possible solution. And it's you know, for movies, I think it's different. I think getting engulfed in a movie, you know, there's definitely too close and too big, but I think it's different. I think you need to have the proper, I think games are designed for the proper viewing distance and the proper shape. And I think especially stuff like N64, like I've been working on a video about that, and I really think that my favorite way to play those is on like a 14-inch CRT with composite. And it's just the perfect size, you know, sitting normal distance away, and you know, second favorites, obviously, N64 digital, far enough distance from a big TV or something.
Yeah, for sure. Especially, I'm more sensitive to that console when it comes to video quality, because I'm already judging it. I mean, I don't hate the N64. I think it's fine. I liked a lot of the wrestling games when they were initially out. I got one probably the first year or so it was out, in 96 or whatever the heck it was, and it's fine. Mario 64 isn't my Mario. Zelda Ocarina of Time, it's cool. I'm trying again to want to like these games and to get what the feeling people got when they played them, because obviously there's a lot to them. I started with The Legend of Zelda, and then, you know, the second, you know, Adventure of Link. I beat those games as a really small kid. And for you to like the second Zelda game on NES, you got old, like playing that. It's like being president. Like you're the level of stress as a little kid playing this damn game. Like, I can tell you one thing for sure. NES controllers are resilient. They don't break so easily. But I just remember hours and hours of just trial and error and trying to figure stuff out in that game. And so now going back and playing it, I love it because it's easy. I know where everything is, and I've played a few ROM hacks that were awesome. There's one, Resurrection of Ganon, that it even has a new soundtrack.
Oh wow, really?
Yeah, they went above and beyond on kind of that part of it. It's harder. Things aren't in that much different places, but it's pretty cool. I mean, there's other Winter Solstice, I think, is actually original as well, but it doesn't do the original music thing. So I thought that was pretty interesting. Yeah, but with N64, it's different. I had just come from that Sega CD thing, and so I was kind of used to gimmicky graphical stuff,
Hmm.
and that's what the 64 felt like. Choppy, low resolution, full motion video, clunky 3D. And the N64 digital is amazing. I just installed one in my gold Japanese import N64, which I was stoked about because there wasn't an basic N64 RGB. Like there wasn't a Voltar mod for that
Mm.
one. It was the '05 motherboard. To anyone that cares about N64 motherboards, you could do the advanced, the Tim Worthington one. I just the benefit cost benefit of like the amount of time involved in doing an advanced N64 RGB mod, and just to get here's RGB, there's no blur, it's just RGB. It just didn't feel worth it. I had another just gray N64. I threw Voltar's RGB mod on, and while it was great, the gain that I got not being a huge N64 fan between S video and RGB was negligible. It just wasn't that big of a deal to me.
Agreed.
So doing the advanced one, I'm like, you could, but then when N64 digital came out, and I completely slept on it the first time because I have so many other things sort of in the backlog of just projects, and I'm like, do I really care? And but then after seeing all the updates and videos and the deblur and there's Wi-Fi, and I got kind of excited about it so I wound up getting it from the second batch, and yeah, it's really cool. It's the coolest part about my N64, and that sounds like kind of like I'm trying to throw shade at it, but it is. It's cool technology.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's it's kind of funny because I agree about all of that stuff, and I also agree that with N64, the graphics on that were, I kind of liken it to the Atari 2600 in that if you had gotten that brand new as a kid, you'd have gone, "This is amazing! Look what I could do on my TV." And some of those games hold up, but a lot of the games, it's just like I'd rather play a newer version of this or an arcade version. And for me, that's definitely what it is with a lot of N64 games, but not all of them. Some of them are definitely good, but the N64 digital is absolutely killer. And I would give that same advice to anybody whose target monitor is HDMI. Is, no disrespect to Bordy or Tim or anything, but if you're going direct to HDMI and you need to do the advanced mod, just skip it and go N64 digital. It's just one less thing to deal with.
Yeah, it's so with the RetroTink 5X, I feel like you get pretty close going with the RGB mod plus the 5X, because of the auto phasing stuff and just the ease of use and not having to sit there and find the perfect profile for each game. And it's close, but if your goal is just doing the HDMI thing, then yeah. I just picked up the two output version from the little adapter that Laser Bear makes for the digital.
Oh yeah,
Basically,
yeah. I think I had one right in front of me a second ago. But those are awesome, and it turns the output into a full size HDMI port, which I like even more.
yeah, it's pretty cool. I need to dig up one of my Insurrection cables. Apparently, I have a Retro Access or Retro Gaming Cables RGB SCART that I have plugged in, and at least the version I got from Laser Bear was a little bit too, the opening for the multi out was too small. So I'll either just use the Insurrection one or just file it out and make it a little bigger for the, it's a man-sized plug on the Retro Access cables.
Yeah, so there was two. The reason that Greg designed that one was specifically for the HD Retrovision cables, so they wouldn't pop out. So it's supposed to be snug. And then there's another version for all the other cables. And I just gotta pause for a minute and say, like, I didn't prep Clint for any of this. I think this interview is going to air after my N64 video comes out, barring any problems. Sounds like he watched the video already, but I swear I didn't pay him to do any of that.
No, this is literally just as these things are coming out, they're neat. And I've probably, it's funny. I had just got the Forever Pack not even that long ago, and I just saw your video. Well, I only saw the beginning part because we had this scheduled, so I didn't get to watch the whole thing or listen to the whole thing. But yeah, the weekly roundup, you mentioned the Forever Pack, and I'm like, yeah, it is pretty cool. I was thinking the exact same thing, that the mem card pro, wouldn't it be cool if you had those features? But wouldn't that, yeah, that's overkill. That'd be, it's funny because on the memory card pro is not even that expensive. You don't,
Yeah.
it was,
If you,
it was $70.
I'm pretty sure that's gone up in price because of the part shortage, but yeah, the
Okay.
target price is that. So yeah, I mean, it's there's room for all of that stuff. I know a lot of people that even if the higher end solution were out, they still would have picked up the Forever Pack. Or, some people would have bought both if the N64 is their favorite console. So yeah, definitely a bunch of cool stuff coming out these days.
I saw the Switch, they started doing N64, and the controller sold out, so I officially don't care. I'm not chasing things. If it was at Target or if you could just buy it, then great. But honestly, whenever I saw that they were making N64 controllers, the first thing that popped in my head is people are going to just use these to harvest the sticks. They're just going to put them in their old controllers. Like, that's the perfect use case if they're compatible.
That's a good point. I wonder how mine's arriving on Monday, and I think I'm going to use it to do lag testing, and then I'll probably just send it right off to a friend or something like that. But I will check that. I'll very carefully disassemble it and see if any of the parts fit, just for the heck of it.
Yeah, I mean, I know people that are way bigger fans of the console than I am are like very sensitive to the different. I know I've put the aftermarket GameCube like replacement stick in one of my controllers, and I don't play GoldenEye, so I'm not going to know if it's not doing the exact correct thing or has the exact range of motion the original controller would have. And I'm not like some N64 speed running person that really gives a crap, but I mean, that's the first thing that popped in my head is, oh, this is going to be, the thing everyone is hyper focused on right now because it's low quantity, because you can't get them. So the speculator / scalper market's going to scoop them all up. Everyone's going to be mad about the emulation for a couple months. They're going to be mad about the price for a couple months. And then you're going to find those controllers everywhere on clearance, and no one's going to give a crap within 6 months.
Yeah.
They're going to find something else to be mad at and something else to complain about and whatever. I mean, it's funny watching the like outrage of the week in gaming versus, what came out this week. Think about like all the cool stuff that's come out, but then if you look at Twitter, like the trending thing is that it's expensive and that N64 emulation sucks. Like, that's not news. N64 emulation has sucked since forever. It's better than it was. You can do it in 1080p on fast computers, but I think if you watch any of modern vintage gamers videos on like when you're playing Mario Kart and there's this big screen, the play-by-play screen or whatever, if the emulation's right, you'll see the race, what is it, like an instant replay type of thing. So I think they got that right on the Switch. And
I haven't tried it yet. I'm not sure if I'm going to go down that road. A couple of friends were messaging me today, like, you got to lag test it. You got to do a video. I'm like, oh, I don't have time. And then they tried triggering me by sending me really terrible videos from people that are like, yeah, it doesn't feel like there's much lag. I'll call it zero lag. And I'm like, no. So yeah, maybe I'll get around to lag testing it. But I have 2 full racks filled with next to look at stuff. And I have to just sit down at some point and go through, like, who sent me something first? Because I always go back through that, and there's, with the part shortage, there's still things that I'm not going to get parts till next year. But yeah, I think I need to just step back for a minute and go, all right, friends have been sending me stuff like, help check it, give me feedback, maybe do a video if you want. I got to just go through and order. And there's already a lot of people doing the Switch stuff, so I feel like that's, I should just stick to something that people would actually care about hearing me talk about.
Yeah, it's going to be covered to death because everyone that's looking for the next sort of clickbaity thing just to, what's the outrage this week? And there's a lot of YouTubers that just sort of look for the angry topic and just cover those. And a lot of them are great at it. But I feel like it's brand new. You can't even get the controllers. I'm not even gonna try. I don't care that much. I can just play the games I have on my existing N64 digital with the controller. I got the Brawler 64 2.4G, It is a controller. It does stuff. It's fine. Like I'm good. I don't need to run out and buy another thing on the Switch. Like I don't feel compelled to spend $50 on games I've had since 1998 and
Yeah.
their worst versions. Like I'm good. I mean, for some people, it's they want every console to play everything and perfectly, and I don't know that that's a realistic or like a reasonable expectation. I think you kind of use what you have, and if you have original hardware, like to me that's better. I don't know. I see people calling that like elitist or something. Like no, it's I'm just old. It's different. Like that's how I remember playing it. Like I like it that way. Emulation's great, and if it's a system I don't have, or I just want to try something out or see some sort of ROM hack that isn't going to work on original hardware, like yeah, emulation's great. I've got like three FPGA like Mister consoles. I've got the one what is it, JAMA adapter that Antonio Valena
Oh,
makes.
nice. Have you tested that on your setup yet?
I did, but at the time my chassis was just not doing very well, so I'm still in the process of sort of cleaning that up. It worked. The USB encoder that it came with was faulty, so he literally sent me a new one in like 5 days or
Oh,
something.
wow.
Yeah, no questions asked. He just sent it to me, and sort of by then I already had the chassis sort of torn out of the Aero City, so it looked good, but the USB encoder was just yeah, encoder was just not working properly. So I'll retest it. I've got a pre-order in for a Mr. Cade also, which even though Antonio's solution's cool, the Mr. Cade looks awesome.
Yeah,
Like
so I don't think I've ever had a chance to talk to Antonio. I would like to, though, but I believe his solution basically could just connect to any Mister and translate the
yeah,
controls over. So that's awesome, and that's especially awesome if you have one Mister that you want to do a couple of different things. But my favorite thing about my Mr. Cade is that I almost forgot that I have it. And that I couldn't possibly give a bigger compliment than that, because if you flip on an arcade machine, select your game, start playing, and you just don't think about that stuff anymore, then it's a win. Whereas I could totally see myself looking at an arcade machine and going, oh, my Mister's in the other TV. I'll just play something else. Just, you know?
yeah. So Antonio's solution's cool, and you can use it for anything from like a PC or
Mm.
anything that has VGA connection on it, right? It's a JAMA Edge with VGA and a USB micro plug on it, so you could use it for lots of different things. I'm sure as long as you can get the right resolution sort of dialed in. But um, it's an acrylic box versus the Mr. Cade is meant to have those feet that mount, vertically to one of those what do you even call those? The boards that you kind of mount your JAMA boards to, like it's usually a wooden sort of tray or something. What would you even, a
That
shelf?
is an excellent question, and I just always said mount it to the wood inside, and everybody knew what I was talking
Yeah,
about. So
right.
either I made an ass of myself every time I talked about it, or that's just what everybody else says too. I got no clue.
Yeah, so you'd need to, I mean, I'm sure most people just double-sided tape it or come up with some little mounting bracket thing, but having something that feels more like it's designed specifically to be in a cabinet versus that you have to double-sided tape on, just it feels like a more elegant or like thorough solution.
Yeah.
And that's not to say that Antonio's stuff isn't really good. He designs a lot of cool
Hmm.
stuff. And his customer service, for being on the other side of the planet, that he was able to get a replacement part to me faster than most people in California can, and I'm in California, was definitely commendable.
Yeah, and you just brought
Um,
up a point that I totally forgot about, and that you could use his for any 15 kilohertz source. So now I might have to
yeah,
buy one of those just to screw around with that.
yeah, it's definitely cool. And he provided the model number for the USB board he's using, so you can go and look up lag test results. So if it meets expectations, like you'll already kind of know where you are because it's already been bench tested. It's people have already done the legwork. Um, I think that same board is used in a lot of like fight sticks people custom build and stuff.
Yeah.
So
You know, it's funny we're talking about this. I think right here, hold on a second, right on the top of my, yeah, all right. Right on the top of my pile. I don't know if I'm supposed to be showing this. I'll have to ask. Maybe I'll blur it out like like I have a titty out or something, but that is Ivory, his new one. He's the person that made it's the case that looks exactly like this one, but now it's got a JAMA thing sticking out. And that's one of the, I think that's on the top of my list to really look into. Because he did a couple of really cool things with the other board. Let me, hold on. It's right here.
Oh, those are the aluminum case ones, right?
You could do aluminum or you could do clear plastic. And so this is the clear plastic one.
Yeah.
And on the back, there's a knob here that allows you to dial in composite video. So essentially it's the same circuit that everybody else was using for RGB to S-video and composite. RGB to S-video works fine on all of those, but composite, the colors get messed up. So if you want to, you could fire up like any of the color bars in the 240p test suite, load up your core, tweak it with a little screwdriver, dial in the colors, and now you have composite video output. And it's not the perfect solution because, I mean, who was going to go through that much trouble? But I certainly would in a scenario like, what if I have a 20-inch BVM that I game on almost all the time and a 36-inch composite video only TV that I want to use for light gun games? Hell yeah, I'll take the time to tweak that and, just to have that extra feature. So I gotta really put some time into both of those because they're very cool.
So that same seller, I believe he used to sell Taobao only or something like that, or AliExpress only.
Yeah.
So he made OSSCs with these really cool blue, I think pink also anodized aluminum cases, or was it anodized? I have one of his OSSCs. It's fine. It does the exact same thing that the other, the official Video Game Perfection does. I haven't sat there with an oscilloscope and tested it all the way.
No, his stuff's all good quality. Yeah.
Yeah, I saw some responses to some of the stuff he tweeted out that he was pretty excited about releasing, and I think some people seeing that it was AliExpress or China in general got some immediate like, oh, it's a bootleg or a knockoff. Like, no, this guy's a retro gaming guy. Like, he cares about this stuff. He's the guy that made that Mega Drive, isn't he?
It's his friend. That's over in the pile too, actually. His friend made that, but they're working together on that, I believe. And that I try so hard to like use my words properly, and I try to never say cheap Chinese clones again, because people, if you're not a nerd, it's very easy to take that the wrong way. And I'm still on the fence about saying like cheap AliExpress cables, because it's true, 99% of the stuff on there is kind of garbage or clones, but just because it's on there doesn't mean it's garbage. Just like eBay, right? There's plenty of awesome sellers on eBay, but yeah, it's kind of hard, because I think it is actually the safest advice to say stay away from AliExpress for retro gaming. But there are, as long as you know the seller, it's totally different.
Yeah, it's difficult to know quality-wise what you're going to get, and there's very little recourse if you do get the wrong thing. Some of the sellers, they do such high volume of business, your negative feedback is going to really count for very little to nothing. So, I mean, and that's a lot of different things. It's not exclusive to AliExpress or Taobao or Amazon or eBay. It's just in general. It's good to have, solid benchmark testing behind a lot of these products, and it's impossible to get to every last one. And of course, some people are going to generalize, but I've bought a lot of crap that was sold right here, in American stores. You can go to, your local game shop that sells pound cables, and that's a piece of crap. And you bought that right here in the good old US of A. So it's not exactly a one-to-one.
100% true. Yeah.
Yeah. There are some cool things on there, and that one seller and apparently his friend, because the Mega Drive was actually pretty interesting to me as well. I think the Mister that he came out with recently, you had the option of what was it, like VGA output or the Mega Drive or the Saturn
Right, and
output.
that's that one, the Saturn output, which, you know, there's
Yeah,
the only disadvantage would be is if you wanted to go into a VGA monitor or if you wanted to go component video. But if you're looking for RGB, S video, and composite, the Saturn one is awesome. So that's why I feel like I wanted that one just to try something different because I've been testing Pork stuff since it came out, and all of Pork Chop's stuff is awesome. I'm certainly not, you know, saying one's better than the other, but they're different. So, you know, your needs might require one over the other, depending, or just aesthetics. You might like one's look over the other.
it's a pretty it was a clever decision to go with the Saturn output because you do have the extra pin, but I'm wondering if the guys at Retro Gaming Cables and Retro Access are like, all right, so we need to buy more of those connectors now because who else is selling these cables that has that connector besides AliExpress? I mean, I don't see Saturn cables all over the place. I mean, it's a much more popular console now than it probably was when it was new.
Yeah.
But I mean, everybody comes out of the woodwork in the last couple of years talking about how their favorite console was the Saturn or is the Saturn, and I love the Saturn, but I don't see peripherals or cables for it all that frequently, except for like our very niche section of the world on the internet. If it isn't linked on RetroRGB or something, like I don't know where you would find this thing.
Did
I actually tried on AliExpress to buy a Saturn RGB cable, and it was supposed to be for NTSC, and it absolutely was. And I'm not even sure what it was, what the pinout was, but boy, did it not work.
what happened?
So
Was the colors were the colors all crazy, or was it?
just didn't work. Just the no video output.
By the way, my apologies to all of my Australian friends. This was on super sale at the corner store, so Foster's it is.
I remember when that came out. Any Australian person would tell you that it isn't the good beer,
Yeah,
or it's not like the main beer there. I don't know.
yeah, yeah. Did you have a
It's
Saturn
funny.
growing up? Me
No,
neither.
no. I had, and we had a bunch of the older systems before the NES. Like we had a Vectrex.
Oh wow.
We had a Tron arcade. Yeah, it's weird. I don't know anybody else that actually had one back then. I didn't have any of the overlays, but we had the system. We had a Tron arcade cabinet in the basement, which was kind of cool.
How did
Game
you end
still
up with
stressed.
that?
I want to say it was probably one of my dad's clients or something. I know with the Vectrex, my mom was the founder of the local humane society where we were in New Jersey. So they had a thrift shop attached to it. So some stuff would come in for donation, and video gamey type stuff we'd try out for a little bit and then whatever, or we'd buy it for whatever the heck it was. I mean, this is just stuff people are giving away like here, and it would sit for a while. Nobody wants the Vectrex after the video game crash. So we'd have that stuff to try out. I remember we had an Intellivision for a little tiny bit, but I don't know that it worked. We had a 2600 at home. I remember ET and Adventure, the first two console games I remember actually playing. I enjoyed one of those games.
I can guess which one. Not a stretch to figure out which one.
It sounds so cliche to even bring it up, but that game was so frustrating. Just being a little kid, here you just saw the movie. Everyone loves the movie.
Mm.
And here's ET the game. And I didn't get it. I know people can beat it somehow, but I just would fall in the hole and I'd somehow get out eventually. Then I'd fall in another one. And if we didn't also get Adventure, I may never have gotten into video games at all.
It's so funny how experiences like that could transform your childhood for better or worse.
It was just night and day how much more thought was put into the one game versus the other, and sort of the lineage that you can probably trace all the way back to Adventure. And now every sort of adventure type game, like it turned into a genre and subgenres and stuff from just that, and even things before it. But versus the ET game, you can basically equate that to all of the shovelware that's come out since. It's like two very diverging
Yeah.
paths.
So you have experience as a kid growing up with all the US consoles, and then you went to Brazil for a bit, and now you're able to see those. I want to hear about that, but would you first just kind of give how you got to Brazil? Like, you started out in Jersey, North Jersey,
Yep.
South Jersey?
South, Tom's River.
Okay. So is that Tom's River is kind of by Trenton, right?
Tom's River is right by Seaside
Oh,
Heights.
never mind. Okay, different side. Sorry.
Yeah. The Jersey Shore memes, all that stuff, that's about literally my hometown.
That's hysterical. Yeah, Trenton.
Yeah.
Trenton was a town that I had to go to a bunch for work, and it looked like where you could just drop in a camera crew and shoot a post-apocalyptic nuclear war movie right in Trenton without any with like ooh shit, pull my thing out. Yeah, that's the ghost of Trenton messing with my headphones there. Sorry, there's gonna be like 10 comments from people from Trenton like fuck you, it's better now. But yeah, so at least where you grew up certainly was a step up from the best or the worst parts of Trenton.
Yeah. Now the shore is great. The way it's depicted in the show, and the Jersey Shore, the fist pumping and all that stuff. The premise of that show was basically you would have like these quaint seashore sort of village towns that were invaded in the summer and spring break by people coming down from the city to act like it's Vegas and party and go crazy. And sort of the conflict between the locals and the out of town people is the show.
Mm.
Right. But they don't really say that out loud. They just talk about people being drunk and fighting, and the one school teacher guy punching Snooki in the face, like just the worst possible human behavior. Right. So that's where the bad press for that came from, and why people made fun of New Jersey before that show, though. It should, it's not just that. New Jersey jokes go as far back as lawyer jokes.
Yeah.
So you have to take that sort of on the chin and just sort of smile and roll with it. It's Jersey was cool.
I don't make Jersey jokes normally unless I'm in Jersey to my friends, just because we're assholes. But that's about it. I was only at the shore once, and I thought it was beautiful. The ocean was awesome. Everybody was really chill. So it was definitely not like. I mean, what a shock! A reality TV show isn't actually real. No surprise there. But I'm sure it's just slices of whatever goes on down there.
Yeah, I've been to a lot of places that suck more. But even they had their charm. I mean, so Brazil, I did lots of martial arts as a kid, even karate and taekwondo and all that stuff. From like being a real little kid. I did judo starting, I think, in junior college, and wound up in Brazilian jiu-jitsu sort of like full time every day by 2005. I'm sorry. So in 2005, I had just moved to California. I really didn't know anybody, but I was over at Ralph Gracie Jiu-Jitsu in Mountain View. I didn't have any friends besides work, and so I'm like on MySpace or Facebook, whichever it was at the time. Facebook. It was MySpace.
I was going to say, I'm pretty sure it was MySpace in 2005.
It was MySpace. So I was looking for people that lived in my general area with the search keyword like Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, but it matched Brazilian, but not Jiu-Jitsu. And I wound up meeting a girl, and that was Brazilian, and we dated and we got married eventually after. So we would go back and forth quite a bit. Like we'd probably spend a month out of the year there for like the next 8 or 9 years or something. So 8 years. So it was just the time out there. The internet wasn't very fast, so you're going to video stores and renting DVDs and renting whatever. So the one shop had Master System and Mega Drive games, and this is like in 2010, 2011, and no Nintendo stuff. No one I talked to really knew much about the NES or Nintendo. Like it wasn't a thing. Like the later consoles eventually got there, but my understanding was things sold in Brazil at the time anyway, back when we would have had like the heyday of the Genesis and the Nintendos and all that stuff, needed to be produced by a Brazilian company or have some sort of like business tie, or otherwise it was going to be taxed to a point of not even being a consumer good that you could reasonably buy unless you were like very well off. So cars down there were also sort of looped in. Cars are way more expensive, except for VWs, because they still manufacture VWs in Brazil, to a good degree. So Tectoy, I guess, went and pitched, Sega, and became this official distributor of Sega stuff in Brazil. So whenever you'd go to flea markets, or they call it like a feira, it's like a bazaar type thing. Every town has, probably 10 of them. You would find video game stuff. You'd find bootlegs and stuff too. I'm sure you've seen videos of people sort of, here's bootleg PS3 or PS4 games. You generally see more games from like the previous generation. Like, I think the last time I was there, like PS4 was still a big thing, but like you didn't see them. People didn't really have them unless they were like very well off. Um, you wouldn't see the Switch or something until way later. It might be different now.
I think it's still pretty much the same, and there's in fact a bunch of retro gaming focused companies that are looking to kind of cure that, because to buy any of the stuff, like to import G-SCART switches, are insane. So the company there kind of made their own, that it was not a clone, but it was obviously inspired by Super G's design, and he even gave it the thumbs up, like, hey, that looks cool, good job, like, thanks for not cloning mine. Like, so it's definitely it sucks because of their import taxes, but it's cool because that bred some pretty interesting innovation, whether it's the Tectoy stuff and squeezing a lot out of a Sega Master System, to even what people are doing today with like the retro stuff.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, in 2017, they re-released the Mega Drive 1 in like the similar to original packaging, and it is a Mega Drive. Like, it has composite output. It's not HDMI. I haven't opened it. I still have it in the box sealed because I thought it was so cool. It's like I have this original sealed Mega Drive, but it's not. But it was somehow made in 2017, but they wouldn't sell them to people outside of Brazil. All I'm thinking is, no, I don't want to open it. I want to get another one that's already open, but there's something so cool about this thing just being like museum perfect quality original.
Totally agree. 100%.
And so I've got that one. I've got a CDX also, that's Tectoy. So it's their PAL M format.
You sent me the picture of that. I'm just going to leave a little timestamp here so I can remember. I want to put that picture in this because I've never seen that at all. I didn't even know they made a Tectoy CDX.
Yeah, it's not common. Well, the CDX isn't. I mean, you can find them on eBay. People have them, but they didn't sell large numbers of them. There's probably lots of weird things like that from the original sort of releases of the systems. There might be a Nomad, for example. I'm not sure, but the bottom, you'll see in the picture, has almost like a sticker kind of overlay that basically covers all the original text that would have been there on the bottom. The video RGB, you get full color if you use it in the US, but it's PAL M, which is 60 hertz, and it basically occupies a slightly different color space. So it's almost like NTSC-J, to where with composite you'd get black and white if you tried playing it on an American CRT. But if you go RGB, it doesn't matter. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to.
Yeah.
So
I totally forgot about that. My buddy Lewis lives out in Estonia, and I made a comment about RGB working, and he's like, "Yeah, because RGB is the original color space. Composite is the end." I totally forgot. I totally forgot about that.
So at some point, I'll need to recap this CDX system. So I want to take some pictures of it just to see what sort of additional circuitry was added. I was under the impression they basically take an American CDX, and then Tectoy gets it and adds whatever composite, PAL M stuff to it. I don't think that's Sega that's doing it. So I was interested to see just sort of how shoddy that is. Is it just sort of hacked on there, or is it maybe they have their own little PCB that is like a daughter board or something? I don't know, but I want to open it up and just take some pictures next time. I do need to recap it eventually. The problem is it just worked.
Yeah. So the next time you take it apart, Jose Cruz, good friend of mine, awesome modder, has this trick where every time he opens up a CDX, underneath where the spindle is, just put a piece of black tape. I hate to call it electrical tape because it's not electrical, but like that works perfect because he found a bunch of them where the motherboards were starting to wear down in that exact spot. And eventually, obviously, you go through the layers. So just put a little piece of tape and, just a visual thing. Shine like a really bright flashlight under the caps if you can. If you see any goop, then recap it right away. If not, you probably get a lot more time. But yeah, the tape thing is something worth doing because you don't want to go through the motherboard and ruin that.
Oh, that's right. There's a little plastic thing that wears into the PCB.
Yeah, it's very similar to the Super Graphics, but the Super Graphics one's like, no pun intended, super easy. You pop the bottom off, you snip the plastic, you put it back, whatever. Whereas, the CDX is a tiny thing with jammed into a little box, so it's a little harder.
Generally, I have no problem just opening up consoles and working on them and stuff. Just the CDX, how everything's just sort of really condensed. It made me a little nervous. One, because I can't easily just buy another one. It's certainly not another one that's PAL M or whatever, even whether that's a good thing or not. I think it's neat because it's obscure and you don't see a lot of them and whatever. But yeah, I've just been sort of hesitant because I don't want to open it up and find a mess or crap. Then you're down that rabbit hole.
Yeah.
It's like once I wind up opening a system, we're like, oh, there's 8 things I need to do to it. Yes, yesterday basically, and now it's a project.
Yeah, I agree. So when you were in Brazil, did you compete? Did you do any coaching down there too, or was that mostly just for work and then just for vacation?
Oh, I'm an idiot. I would bring my gi and all my gear no matter where I went. So for work, I would go. Yeah, I went to London several times. I trained there. Went to Singapore, trained there. Every time I would go to Brazil, I'd bring a gi, but I would sort of have one already there waiting for me because I'd leave it the previous time. And I trained as often as I could. The classes were all in Portuguese, so that sort of helped me learn faster because it's one of those things where Rosetta Stone and Duolingo are great, but when you need to find a bathroom or you're bleeding or something, you'll learn the language pretty quick.
Yeah, that's for sure. I was trying to learn Mandarin Chinese when I was out in Taiwan for a while, and the Rosetta Stone was cool, but it was really just getting a feel for it as well as learning what to hear and say. So you're totally right. When you need to be pressured into doing something to really learn it.
Yeah, it's the immersion and just the necessity of it. I mean, babies learn languages. I'm more in awe that people are able to learn our language because structurally it doesn't follow as many conventions as many other languages do. So despite other languages sounding very technical and very difficult to learn with the accent and pronunciation, ours doesn't follow a lot of the same rules that many do. So whenever people get a hard time for having an accent or not speaking very clearly, as English as a second language speakers, it kind of frustrates me that they don't get the respect they kind of deserve. It's hard to learn this language as an adult, as a second language. I think this one's probably a lot harder than many others. Just I did Spanish in high school. That was okay. I later used very little of it, forgot it, and then relearned Portuguese almost on top of it. So whatever space I had in my brain for that, the Spanish stuff was kind of like overwritten / sort of like amalgamated into like this Portuñol thing where it's both of them sort of like shoved together. Yeah, learning languages as an adult's hard.
Yeah.
But I think English is probably harder, but I see a lot of people learn it and it's pretty cool.
So you're pretty fluent in it at this point?
I was better when I was using it more. I haven't been back that way since probably 2015, call it. So yeah, me and my ex split up like 2015. So yeah, going back would be at first it would have been weird. Now I'm just like, okay, well, whenever the pandemic stuff is over, I've sort of things I have to go take care of down there anyway. And I like it there. I have a lot of friends there. It's pretty cool. But yeah, I haven't really gone anywhere in a couple of years, just like everyone else, I guess. But I can speak it, I can read it. Joining conversations, depending on where they're from in the country or if they're from Portugal, that's difficult. But I just take a second to kind of respond, if that makes sense. or I'm not going to be as articulate as someone like a native speaker. I probably sound like a really smart 8-year-old.
Yeah.
Like a really dumb 7-year-old. I don't know.
I mean, it's funny, like as adults, you forget that like the first times you do something, you're a child. So even though you're an expert at whatever it is that you do, like the first time you do anything, a new language, a new skill, you're a child learning a skill that eventually has to, get to an adult's use of that skill. So it's, some things are easier, motor skills, obviously way easier for an adult to learn than little kids, but language, I kind of almost feel like it's easier as a kid to learn multiple languages.
Yeah, it's challenging. It's just spending time and, like you were saying, immersion. Just if you need to find a bathroom, you're bleeding, you're hungry, you need water, like you'll figure out whatever the hell it is you have to say pretty quick. It's when you need stuff, that's when the real smarts comes out, I guess.
Yeah. All right, everybody, we're back. There was an interruption. We had to restart this the next day. You could tell, obviously, Clint's wearing a different shirt. I swear I'm also wearing a different shirt. I just have a bunch of these. New beer, but we're back into it. And I'm glad we continued, too, because I really wanted to ask about a lot of martial arts stuff. And also, selfishly, I really love it when not people that don't look like nerds are also huge nerds. I mean, that obviously is a giant compliment, not, no insult there. So... but I believe we left off talking about Brazil. You always had a gi with you. You always left a gi there, but
Yep.
your competition's there. So, anybody that follows MMA has probably seen you in some of the, some of the broadcasts. And I guess I do also want to set the stage for my knowledge about martial arts, MMA, and all that is about. This might be a terrible example, but it's about equal to somebody who grew up like loving the NES. Somebody about our age that hasn't really played it since. So I know enough to be dangerous, but I'm still in some ways a beginner about it. Obviously I don't practice, even though I'd really love to. So yeah, I mean, I know enough to hold the conversation, but you're still going to have to walk me through a bit beginner stuff, like, as you go.
Sure. Okay. So for me, I started with karate and stuff when I was a little kid, but I was a little kid and I sucked at it, and you're a little kid that sucks at everything. So
of course. What type of karate exactly?
Oh gosh.
I did Tang Sudo, which was the Korean martial arts, right?
So I know that my parents enrolled me in Taekwondo when I was a real little kid, and something else, but I mean, I was so young. I barely remember what I did 2 weeks ago. The grappling side of things didn't kick off until probably in elementary school. I did some intramural wrestling and stuff. I got into judo in junior college, which was kind of the gateway drug to Brazilian jiu-jitsu, because at the time people were still talking about the Hoist Gracie, UFC 1, this guy wearing pajamas choked out some meathead in a fight tournament on pay-per-view, or whatever the legend is, right? UFC, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so everyone would sort of grapple around at the end of class, and that got me to the point where I really wanted to do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, but this is early 2000s. It wasn't really that popular in the States. It wasn't easy to find schools, but in 2005, I moved out to the Bay Area, and there were quite a few jiu-jitsu schools up here, or out here, I should say. And I wound up signing up at Half Gracie's in Mountain View. And yeah, I think I was there a year, screwed up my elbow. And by the time I came back, my one instructor had already moved and opened his own school. So I started up at AKA, so American Kickboxing Academy. And I was there until the pandemic. And now it's kind of, which is, I guess, 16 years from 2005 to 2021 or something like that, or 2020. It's still a weird time because businesses are, the regulations about being open in close quarters, like you can, but a lot of people are still really shy about it and nervous, and with or without the vaccine. And it's still a weird topic. A lot of people just sort of stopped and didn't go back, which is unfortunate. But I'd like to get back sooner rather than later. I used the downtime to fix a bunch of stuff that was just busted on me. My neck, like lower back, I wound up in a car accident like a couple years ago.
Oh man.
That, yeah, I wasn't the driver. I was literally going to test drive a car to like buy the car, and the sales guy's like, well, I'm going to drive it first off the lot and then we'll switch. And yeah, when I had to tell the people at the ER, the nurse, the admission nurse at the ER, like what happened, and they're looking at me like, that's real. I'm like, no, this literally just happened. They're like, how did you have that kind of luck? I'm like, nah.
Yeah, that is awful. I've never heard of that too. Usually the salesman will jump in, but never tell you they're going to drive the car. Were they just afraid you were going to steal it or something? I don't understand.
They were trying to upsell me something quite a bit more expensive and faster.
Gross. Okay.
And started driving like pretty inappropriately to where it was like, all right, that's their pitch. That's what they do, right? And it turned from that to, oh, they don't know what they're doing. Lost control around a corner and just like hit a pole and a curb and almost a bus stop with people on it. Like it was a whole thing. Yeah. So I was pretty messed up for a good while and finally found a decent doctor, got imaging all this stuff, and they're like, you need surgery like yesterday. So went, did that. And I mean, the pandemic was sort of perfect. It sounds terrible, but like I was able to actually stop, being at the gym every day, teaching, and go get the procedure done. And it was like a disc replacement. Like they go through the front. Oh, yeah. I was pretty terrified. I'm like, when someone says they're going to put a knife to your neck, that's bad. You know what I mean? So
yeah.
But no, they did a really good job, and I was able to sort of just use the pandemic time to get fat and heal up, kind of.
I'm glad to hear that. That's scary. Yeah, that drives me nuts. I hate situations like that, and I also hate that. I try not to put gender in any of this stuff because I really do think that everybody's the fucking same. But there is this stigma about like certain dudes just think they could drive. And they have no idea that it's a learned skill. I mean, that would be equal to me walking into a ring with you and being like, no, I got this. I watched this on TV. I watched Fast and the Furious. Like, it's equally as stupid. It just doesn't feel as stupid because you're safe with a wheel and a seatbelt, but it's just as dumb.
The first, 10 years of training and being at a jiu-jitsu, well, it was an MMA based school. I mean, the gym I was out of was known for MMA fighters and having some pretty good success in some of the mainstream promotions. So what you just described was the first 5-6 years when UFC was at like its height of people being like, hey, let's go train UFC. We would have people coming in all the time that had in their minds, I don't know if they played a video game or just watched wrestling or something and had an idea of how it worked, but had this like disproportionate idea in their minds of their skill level, which got old after a while. And you just have to sort of let them down gently and try to make it constructive and productive. Some people are just incorrigible and you just can't wait for them to leave. But it's the same with driving. And with martial arts, like fighting ability, people sort of talk themselves up and don't really realize they're using their S to do so.
But, I do realize there's always a group of people that have some kind of mental thing going on where, like, they're just, they're going to, hold on a second. Sorry, somebody's at my doorbell. I am just ignoring that. But there's always the type of person who, like, they're in their own head. You're never going to tell them anything. It just doesn't matter. But I see so much in the modding community that arrogance of like, oh, I could figure this out. That loudmouth Voltar could do it, so I could do it too. And they ruin a console and they blame everybody else except themselves. And I always wondered, like, in a situation like MMA, like any kind of martial arts, right? If you step into a training scenario with somebody else and you're getting whooped, is it just immediately that like, oh, I fucked up? Or like, does it still take people a while to realize that they're being arrogant?
So the learning technique and muscle memory to execute anything, or whether it's in wrestling or it's a striking art, jiu-jitsu, whatever, that's part of it. But like managing energy and knowing which muscles to use and not just being completely exhausted. If you don't know what you're doing and you go in guns blazing, you'll be done in seconds. And the other person will just be looking at you like, dude, what are you doing? Are you okay? Because they equate a lot of it to strength or just like using all their might to overcome an obstacle. But I mean, even look at boxing. Like the whole point is don't get hit, but hit the other person, right? But first, don't get hit. Same thing for any of these other, sports or martial arts or whatever you want to call it. It has to be, based on efficiency. Like jujitsu is the nerdiest thing you could possibly do when it comes to a sport. It's the geekiest one because it's all about leverage and angles and efficiency and how do I do the most while doing the least. Like it's the one sport where you can legitimately be awesome, but just get progressively fatter as you get awesome at it. It's seriously, I know a lot of people that white belt or blue belt, the first two belts that are like shredded and have a 6-pack or 8-pack, and they're all about that beach body and all that. But by purple or brown, like they have dad bods and they don't have kids. Like because you don't have to do that much. It's like you were trying so hard to do this one thing, and it was literally just I literally meant just like move your hip like just that way, just like a tiny little bit. And they're using every muscle in their body. I'm like, no, literally just your hip. Just your hip. Don't hold your breath. Don't, grit your teeth or clench your fists. Like literally just move your hip. And then like 10 years later, they'll be like, you just meant move just my hip. I was doing it wrong. I know you were doing it wrong the whole time. That's what I told you. But yeah, it's
like the embodiment of Scrooge McDuck. Work smarter, not harder.
Yeah. It's like Scotty from Star Trek, right? It's like you overestimate, but and then when you deliver results sooner, you look like a hero, like you look like a genius.
Exactly.
Same basic principle. It's just you want to try to be more efficient. Like not every problem is a nail, and not every solution is a hammer. Is that the analogy? I don't know. It's been a long day already.
I don't know, but that makes sense to me. So I think you got it right. If not, you just made some cool shit up. So
right on. Some Yoda stuff. But
so,
yeah, it's
so when you're training, and we're kind of bouncing all over the place, but that's fine. When you're training and you're doing these things, is there always like an easy step one for people that want to decide? Like, is step one simply go to one of these places and just talk with a coach, or is step one like, in the modern community, step one's grab an old piece of anything that has a circuit on it, buy a cheap soldering iron, and then just practice? Like, is there something that people could do to see, or is it really just talk to a coach and a professional?
Just really go. Find a place that's near where you work or near your home. I mean, obviously go online, and there's websites that'll tell you if the place is, BS or not. I think one used to be called like Bullshido instead of Bushido. It's Bullshido. They have this concept called a McDojo. So basically, like, you don't want that. You want a place that has a good reputation, that has some sort of good family environment, if that's what you're looking for. If you want to be a fighter, then look for that too. But definitely do some research, but then show up. The number one thing that I hear when people want to go but they don't is that they want to lose weight first. They want to do cardio first because they're not going to be ready. Here's the thing, like cardio's muscle and like skill or action specific. You could be a marathon runner and show up for something like bicycle or swimming or anything, like, and you're going to be gassed immediately because those are different movements. So the best preparation for starting jiu-jitsu or kickboxing or boxing or whatever is just go. They'll work to your level. Like they're there because they want to retain you as a student. So if it's a good gym, but yeah, I mean, obviously cost is probably a thing too, find a place that's within your budget, but good reputation / close to where you're going to be on a daily basis. Like don't just buy a membership and not go. I mean, it's hard. All this stuff's hard, but it's supposed to be.
Yeah, I
For
mean,
me,
it's not supposed to be something that you show up, sit down, and crack a beer. Like that's, I love that too. Don't get, obviously, I love that too, but that's a completely different thing. Like if I, like when I worked with a trainer a while back, who was the best I've ever worked with. I got unlucky with a bunch of trainers over the years, but like he was awesome, but he was also patient, and he kept saying things like, well, if you can't make it to, like, no, I'm going to do this. I'm not here to waste your time or mine, but I first time in a gym in a long time, so like just be patient. And he was great, but I was there to work. I wasn't there to get patted on the back or anything like that. And finding a good anything and finding a good human anywhere for anything is so hard. So that website Bullshito, like that's what you would suggest to try to find out what's a decent place or not.
gosh, so that's one, it exists, and that's going to be where like the red flags are. If there's something horrible or like that school is just stay the hell away. Like for it to be there, it would have to be a pretty flagrant sort of example. Facebook reviews. I hate saying Yelp because everyone on Yelp seems grumpy
Yeah.
or just mad at their food or something. So it's difficult, but certainly uh, check reviews online. Every major metropolitan area in the country and damn near in the world now probably has a jiu-jitsu gym. It wasn't like that when I first got into it, and now there's so many more black belts and good ones and good gyms, and the curriculum is, well, there's a curriculum now. It isn't just sort of if you survive, like you get to keep coming.
Mm.
It it was kind of less organized and more just kind of brutal back in the day, even predating me to an extent, and for sure. But I think now there's a lot more like family friendly type places where you can go in, and it's one of the best things I got was sort of this like the feeling or the sense of community where the people that you're there with almost turn into extended family because you're around them so much. I mean, you're at work X hours a day. You're home, at least to sleep, but I'd be on the mat, 2-3 hours every day. And that would be like a slower day or a slower week. A lot of times it would be double days, or later on when I was, teaching every single day, it would be at a private lessons plus group classes, and plus my like daily like tech job thing too. So to everyone that says they don't have time, no, I get it. But you have to make it. Yeah, you have to really want to. There's lots of really cool stuff out there. To me, martial arts made my life better. It presented a lot of opportunities to me that I don't think I otherwise would have been afforded. Just between meeting people and learning things and being able to travel, and a lot more confident, I guess. If that makes sense, and maybe humble.
100% makes sense, because it's not about having, and please tell me if I'm speaking out of turn here, but it's not about having the skills to whoop somebody's ass. It's having the skills to know yourself in a way where you're confident just standing there on your own 2 feet. It's not a violence thing. It's a confidence and self-confidence thing. That's probably not the right word, but am I getting that right?
No, it is. You learn a lot of humility too, because just as often, as you're the hammer, a lot of times you're the nail. And the first couple of years you're learning anything like this, you're going to get your butt kicked, choked, submitted, tapped out, whatever, a lot. And you're supposed to. If you're not at a good place, because there should be levels, right? The people that have been doing it for years should be much better than a person that's brand new. Just having that sort of the reps in, I guess, just the repetitions under pressure. So if something does happen, you're able to think on your feet and hopefully able to protect your family and know when it's time to take a walk. Like, it's easy to be undefeated at bar fights if you don't get in bar fights, right?
Yeah, but it's also, a friend of mine, an ex-Marine, said something one time. There was some loudmouth at a bar that had been in a bunch of fights, and he started messing with my friend, who's very large and very scary looking. So I don't know what he was thinking. And my friend just looked at him and goes, "What is wrong with you? I'm trained. You think because you beat up a couple of pussies at a bar that could barely even walk because they were so drunk that you're tough? You're a bully. How do you think this is going to end when you fight somebody who's trained? And the look on the guy's face was like, oh shit, he's right. Like, it's one of those things where that really sat with me. And the only other thing that sat with me too is being a loudmouth little fat kid. I did have to fight my way home quite a bit. And every time I say that, there's always somebody listening that's like, oh, so you think you're tough? No. The point I'm saying is that I'm not tough. I've never been tough. But I have this fight or flight thing where so many times that because I had no choice really, with the same trainer that I really liked, I was with a session with him and he's like, hey, let's change it up. Let's do some boxing. And I'm like, I don't know, man. Like I got, I don't want to trigger any weird memories. And sure enough, like, as soon as he's wearing me out, which was infinitely quick, of course, because I'm still not in good shape. But like I got a couple of punches in and then my whole body thought, and I didn't do it, thought like this guy is bigger than you, he's in shape, he's gonna whoop your ass, grab a weight, smash him and run because you're gonna die today. Like, I'm just like, no, you're not in the ghetto anymore, Bob. Calm the fuck down. You're in you're in a nice, happy place. So that really made me think, like, I would love to, if I ever have a free moment, to do something. And jiu-jitsu is actually one of the top things on my list that I wanted to look into for all of the happy reasons, right? Like, I want to be in better shape, but I want to do an act that I'm not just counting the seconds until I'm done and I could go do something else. But I also want to get rid of that weird subconscious thing where like I feel like I want to change it from fight or flight to like know what to do in that moment. Cause I just growing up like that, it was, I didn't really have a choice. It was just when you felt a punch coming, you just take a deep breath and swing until you run out of breath. And that's obviously not how to fight or how to defend yourself. So.
No, you hit the nail on the head. It's if you can't breathe, you can't think, and just that fight or flight thing, you tense up. Every single muscle is engaged, and you don't get a lot of that. You know what I mean? You'll wear out pretty quick, and that can be dangerous. Especially if it is a bar, you don't know your surroundings, or everyone there aren't your friends. Of course, my dog's barking. I said it might happen, but
It's all good.
So yeah, it's like we were talking about languages. You sort of learn them with immersion as you need them. And for me, at least with grappling, it was a lot of that being in close quarters, any claustrophobia or like apprehension about being in close quarters with another person, you get over it pretty quick. And just being able to slow down and breathe and think. Because if you can't breathe, you can't think. It sounds like some Mr. Miyagi stuff, but it's so true.
It applies to so many different aspects of life too.
And you get hurt so much quicker too. I mean, if you tense up every muscle in your body and then you even shift just a little bit, I mean, it's really easy to pull something, mess up your back or a limb, whatever. There's just a lot of really good stuff that's in there. Yeah, it's hard, and most people quit. But the folks that really want it, that are able to kind of embrace the hard part, there's a lot of really rewarding stuff there. It's super technical, which is why there's a lot of people that don't look like super athletes that do it, even though it is hard and even though they are in good shape. You have people from all walks of life. It's kind of cool. It's like this, like a DMZ or like a neutral zone where like you can be any color or creed or religion, or you can have Yakuza with police in the case of Japan. Like this is an actual thing. And the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is a thing in Japan, and everyone's just kind of like a neutral territory. All that stuff's off the table. No politics, no religion, just training. It's awesome.
That's actually why I like nerd stuff and music so much too. It's just because you don't have to be anything to be a good nerd. You don't have to be anything other than a good musician to be a good musician. There is no labels or boxes. I mean, you could try to put people in them, but it's just not going to work. You could be the quote unquote cool person, but if you can't pick up a guitar and play it, it doesn't mean shit. So,
yeah, it's funny when it comes to talent with a musical instrument or someone's ability to do something technical. I mean, yeah, martial arts are the same, jiu-jitsu is the same way. If you don't perform Like there's a natural kind of hierarchy to your gym, regardless of who wears the prettiest uniform or whatever, who has the biggest Instagram or something. Everyone knows where everyone else stands real quick. It's like you have that hierarchy pretty much. It's there. You know who's good. You know who is not working too hard. Who comes early. Who skips out when the hard stuff comes, or who shows up right after the warm up. That their work day just happens to exactly end exactly when the warm up is over, and you're going to get a drink of water. Just like all the little shortcut things. Like their schedule sure is really specific, but yeah, it's you sort of figure that out really quick. But it's definitely something if you're interested, or anyone out there is interested in trying something new, do it. The prep work for jiu-jitsu is go do it. Like find a gym that doesn't suck. Most of them have free trial, like a week of free classes, or at least a free class. If they don't bother. There should be a free, it's standard. Except the only place I saw where they didn't do that was San Diego and LA, because they had so many people that would go there for like martial arts tourism, because there's so many famous sort of fighters that train out of those schools. So they would just want the free class to go in and, meet Joe Rogan or something and then bounce.
What a colossal waste of everybody's time. That's terrible.
So they would charge $100. So they charge $100 for drop-ins, and they can tell if you're serious or not.
That's actually fair then at that point. If you just want to go and look and see where all these people are training and maybe meet your hero or something, $100 is a fair price. But yeah, the free drop-in, that sounds just like a terrible waste. And correct me if I'm wrong here, but like most other things in life, you could go in with the attitude of, I want to work, I want to take this seriously, but I have no aspirations to being a pro fighter. I really want to do this for me. Like the people with that attitude that are there to work and not waste people's time, I'm sure that's still welcomed at most gyms, right? There's obviously gyms that focus on professional training, but I mean, you get both, right?
So the first use case, just it being a family environment and a gym, just a part of the neighborhood, like that's the first thing. Businesses that solely go in as we just train pro fighters, there's very little money in that, being very realistic. Of course, if people want to work and they want to go that route, it's available at some places. For the most part, yeah, you can go and do local competitions if you want to, but you're not there to be the UFC champion. And that's what most people, that's like the course or the path most people would follow. Any gym should have a pretty well-developed kids program. They're sort of the bread and butter of like any martial arts business. If there isn't a kids program, you kind of want to scratch your head and be like, that's weird. How are they? Some gyms, it sounds maybe offensive to some folks because they might fall in this category. They're like hobby businesses. Maybe an ex-fighter or something would open, but without really the business part of it in the front of their mind. So you'd see it as the whole industry sort of blew up. You had lots and lots of gyms out of nowhere, and a lot of them didn't last all that long. Many did, but the ones that were just sort of like hobby things that they didn't really approach as a business, like they wouldn't have kids programs, for example, which doesn't make sense. They wouldn't have women's programs, which is like, all right. Remember hearing from a friend of mine, they tried to go to a gym. He and his wife tried to go to a one gym out here, and they said, "Oh, well, we don't have anything for women. Like, it's not a mixed class." And it's the craziest thing. Never seen that before. Like, But again, the internet is a pretty good place to find information on just about anything. It's like the most like the statement I've said in years. You can tell I slept a lot last night, but
no, it's all good. But yeah, all right. So that's, I don't know, that's pretty cool, because that's something that I know a lot of people that have probably been on the fence, and And this is going to sound strange, but just hearing you talk about it, I'm sure there's a few people listening that are actually going to get up and go do it. I might be one of them too if I could find some free time. Just hearing you talk about the other sides of it, it's so easy with anything else in life, right? You go to see a Dream Theater concert and you go, well, I'm going to quit playing guitar because I could never do that again. But it's like, it doesn't have to be that. You don't have to be the best to enjoy something.
I mean, there's always going to be somebody bigger, stronger, faster, and there's only like a very specific age, rough age range of your life where you have a chance of being at like that top of the food chain in any sport or anything. So it's like it's not the purpose. It should be you're doing it because you love to do it and you want to learn and you want to improve and you want to be better than you were a year ago or a month ago. Or like the real growth isn't, are you better than the other guy that's also doing it? It's like, how are you compared to, have you grown as a athlete, as a martial artist, as a guitarist, right? The number one thing that I could say to that maybe would appeal to someone that hasn't really thought about it before, for kids specifically, MMA and UFC has been on TV for I think 27 years, 27, 28. What was it, like 93 was like the first UFC. So you mentioned bullying earlier, like growing up in, maybe a not great area or not great neighborhood and just having conflict for whatever reason. Those kids will have been raised, any kid that would have been a bully back then, this generation of them has been raised with 27 years of experience of having UFC on TV. So if they know just a little bit from watching it on TV, it goes from having a black eye to they could know how to do a chokehold that's lethal with very little effort. So like if the bullies potentially know this stuff, and you figure they do, you can watch pro wrestling and a lot of that stuff rips off Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and MMA techniques. Oh, I got a sleeper hold. Well, if you hold it on too long, that person's not alive anymore. So like if kids that maybe are bullying other kids that maybe aren't raised in the greatest environments or just not coming from the greatest environments, if they're acting out on other kids and your kid doesn't know how to defend themselves, realistically, it's dangerous. So if I had kids, I don't. If I do, I would want them to know how to protect themselves. And the classes exist, obviously, learning self-control and don't play around doing it, like take it seriously, but knowing that it's common knowledge, like all these, break kid's arm, just do this, or it's on TV. And how many parents of these kids have like raised them watching this stuff since an early age? And so, if one of them acts out, you could have a problem. So I would, at least think that as parents, you'd want to investigate options. And I don't think schools have it as an option. I think maybe they should. But yeah, wrestling something, that'll, if the kid joins the wrestling program in grade school, they won't get bullied anymore, I promise. So that'll toughen a kid up quickly. But jiu-jitsu is great too.
Yeah, I agree. There's also the other side of that too. Like, when I messed my back up, I went to a physical therapist and I'm like, all right, move this in that direction. And it was just like what you said before, like move just your hip. Never in my life have I ever had to like do that or something, right? So I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it. And it wasn't strength. It wasn't even that I'm fat and out of shape. It was just, if you're not used to moving parts of your body, you have to retrain yourself. And I wonder how many times in my life I've lifted something really heavy, or I've just done the same motion over and over that like could have been better overall if I had better core control, better body control, just very basic skills for things that you don't even really think about, right? Like how many times do you think I picked up the side of a BVM, squished it up against my gut, and then like had to walk upstairs and around? I bet you if I had some kind of formal training, I would know like, no, you're holding it too high, put your elbows straight, like just very things that you don't think matters. And I guess really doesn't matter if you're only lifting one monitor once, but like just life things that start to add up, that if you have more body control when you're young, it's just not an issue anymore.
Yeah, it's totally true. As a kid, I wish I would have done gymnastics now, and I wish I would have taken wrestling more seriously. I don't think they get injured nearly as much. Just really getting that flexibility and learning how to fall correctly at a young age, and like just You see, these top skateboarders and stuff, like they fly through the air and they land and then they just sort of walk it off or run it off. It's crazy,
Hmm.
but they have that callus, right? They're conditioned to just be okay. If literally anyone that hasn't done any of those things before tried even one of those things, like they'd be a mess. It would be like a trip to the ER, broken hip, whatever. Yeah, CRT is really heavy. It's one of those things where like you got away with doing it when you're 25 or 20, 30 or whatever. Then you're like, oh yeah, well, I haven't moved this TV in a while, but I remember it not being that heavy. And you go to grab this thing at 35 or 40, and it's like, oh crap, call the ambulance. That did not go well.
Yeah, I've always been very strong for a fat, out of shape guy. Like context here, not strong for a gym guy. And that was the one thing that really pissed me off when I messed my back up. Is they basically said like, be very careful because if you do the wrong thing, if you do the right stuff, or at least not the wrong stuff, you'll be back to normal in a year. And I am. But if I did the wrong things, I could lose. I could have walked with a limp for the rest of my life. So I basically barely lifted anything for like 6 months to a year. And then the first time I went to pick up a PVM again, I'm like, what the hell, man? I used to be the one my gym friends called to help me move their grandma's 1970 refrigerator. Like, why can't I even lift this now? And, that's what really got me back into like core strength, trying to figure out everything around the muscles. And then just life happened and I got so busy I haven't gone back. And I'd feel guilty and I could feel the difference. Like my entire body, I could feel the difference from losing the core strength and then losing, still not gaining back full strength from before. So it's something that bugs me now. And for your training and everything else, are there strength training that you do along with that to just help your other skills?
I've always sort of been into sort of just like the functional sort of compound lifts and things like that. I couldn't really squat anymore after the car thing, but push-ups, kettlebell swings, pull-ups, bench press, deadlifts, planks. Whenever I was not able to go in, to the gym, when everything was shut down, I got a subscription for DDP Yoga, which sounded,
yeah, I heard about that. Everybody I know loves it.
yeah. It was actually really hard at first. And there's some classes where you're watching the guy on TV who's, well into his 50s. He might even be 60 by now. I don't want to speak out of turn, but it's an older guy that's like, he was a pro wrestler and he's, all beat up from doing that over the years. And he's doing all these yoga poses and his endurance is crazy. You're watching this thing like sweating bullets. How is this so hard? But yeah, we really got into it. We were doing it, basically every day, 5 days a week. Cause it's an app and, you cast it or whatever onto the TV and, it was good. It definitely kept me somewhat sane or in some sort of shape when you couldn't go to the gym or, whatever. But yeah, I like it. There's all sorts of things like that, complement any sort of physical activity. I think there's some things that maybe undermine it a little bit.
I'm positive this is one of them, but for my own mental sanity, I can't put this down until I start the DDP yoga or something. We're laughing, but it is true. Like if I don't do a lot of exercise and wear myself out, I have to have something else to shut my brain off. And the other problem I have is even on the days where the trainer worked me to the point that I was like nodding off, walking across the street back to my apartment, I'd go home, I'd make like a nice salad with chicken on it for dinner, go to sleep, pass out at like 10 o'clock, sleep like a rock till about 2 a.m. I'd still be up staring at the ceiling until 6 a.m. So, I gotta figure, and my whole life's been like that since my earliest memories. So it's not, everybody's, oh, you drink? What's the drinking? Oh, you smoke weed? No, I didn't drink and smoke weed when I was 3 years old, and I still have memories of just staring at the ceiling. So I gotta do something to help shut my brain off. And I've never really figured that out. CBD really helps for that for me. It's not the miracle cure that a lot of people claim it is, but that really does help for me. So I got to kind of figure out a routine to just shut down at the end.
Yeah, for me, I generally would just keep busy and just keep doing stuff until I can feel the shutdown happening, like until I could feel like, okay, I could fall asleep now. And if I would just go and lay in the bed, I'd just stare at the ceiling. Especially after the car accident, I couldn't sleep on my side or my stomach anymore, and that's how I would sleep. So I was stuck basically laying flat on my back, exactly, just staring straight upward and just trying to drift off to sleep. And I'm sure that there were weeks where I probably only got like a combined like night of sleep or something out of the whole week because just couldn't fall asleep. It just wasn't happening. You're just uncomfortable, and it's like driving on a road trip really far, and you put the AC on, you roll the windows down, and it just keeps you awake, you're tired, but there's no way you're going to fall asleep because you're just that uncomfortable. Like you're in this crooked position in the car chair, you got the cold air hitting you in the face, like there's no way you fall asleep. You feel like you might, but you won't. It was just like that, just knowing I can't sleep, but I'm so tired.
Man, that's so brutal.
Yeah, but I know exactly where you're coming from.
Sorry to hear. I always feel so bad when I hear other people talk about it because it's such a brutal thing. And I've tried everything. Melatonin sometimes works. Any of the like sleeping pills, they work sort of, but then I wake up burnt to a crisp for hours the next morning. Like it takes a while for me to get my brain going. My brain's all I have. That's how I do all the stuff. So it's like, that's a serious detriment. That's like, we talked off camera before about you, like the times that you might have had a couple too many beers and it takes away from your performance. If I'm burnt the next day, I can't shoot a podcast. I can't write an article. I can't test properly. That's actually why, I smoke weed a couple times a week. The amounts are embarrassingly small. Like if my 16-year-old self saw how little I smoked, I'd probably punch myself in the face. But it's, shuts my brain down. I sleep okay, and I wake up, as long as I don't smoke too much, which, I just watched the movie Dune. I may have allegedly gone a little too far, but not those nights. The normal nights I wake up, and I'm going immediately. 6:30, 7 sometimes at the latest. I wake up, no burnt, just go straight ahead, power through the day until my brain starts to flutter around 8 or 9 or something. And so, everybody's body chemistry is different. I'm certainly not telling you to go smoke weed to try to cure your sleep or anything, but I got to try to find a healthier combination of stuff. So,
yeah, the weed is, it's so much stronger than it was back in the day. It sounds funny. It sounds like very old saying it that way, but as a teenager or whatever, a young adult, whatever you call it, it was just crap, and it wasn't all that strong. There were seeds and stuff, and now that it's a product you can buy at a store, and there's like an Uber thing that'll bring it to your house, and deliveries, and there's products at the gas station that's CBD. It's a whole different world, but the potency on a lot of the stuff is just so much higher now. So it's not clear what the correct amount is. Like, okay, is for sleep to just have this one. All right, how much? Well, that depends.
You're 100% right, but on the flip side of things, when I was growing up, it was, marijuana is a drug. If you take this drug, you're going to die. Just say no, dare, whatever the stupid things were. Like, and, I would have hoped that people would have realized you're never going to tell a kid what to do. They're going to do it anyway. You could try to scare them, but whatever. And I'm embarrassed to say I was in my 30s before I realized pot wasn't just the same thing. I had no idea there were different strains with different types. And I'm just thinking back to all the stories and all the times I was there when, somebody who's naturally high anxiety smokes a strong sativa and freaked out. And if anybody had just given the education of like, listen, everything's dangerous. Caffeine is dangerous. Weed's dangerous. Alcohol is super dangerous. But if you're going to do it, here's what it's like. And if anybody ever told that person, like, hey, you're kind of hyper, if you're ever going to do this, stick to indica, that person might have had a completely different experience. It still might not have been for them. It still might have been the wrong move. But having a night where you're like, oh, I'm tired and burnt, I don't like this, is fine. Having a night where you're like, oh my God, am I going to die? I have no idea what's going on. That's not cool at all. And I wish there was more education, because there's so many scenarios that, you know, I know people have been in where if they had just been in the right place with the right education for it, it would have been a really good move for them, but it wasn't.
Feel like probably another good metric would be the THC content.
Yeah.
Because you could have someone absolutely panic from a high THC indica too. So
yeah, that's also 100%
not...
true. It's one of these things though that I've just been learning in the past couple of years. Like, the first question I asked my pot doctor when I had to go get my card, because my doctor, one of the specialists gave me like a prescription for muscle relaxants, a prescription for like Vicodin or something, and then, you know, something else. And I'm like, this is all good, but I know how this ends. And I know this sounds pompous, but I'm really good at drugs. I'm really bad at eating, but you know, I'm not gonna start taking these and rely on them. That's not cool. I know how that's gonna end. So why do I feel better when I smoke weed than when I take a Vicodin? And, you know, applied for the card, got to the, you know, the weed doctor, and he's like, well, it's a combination of things. The THC opens up your pain receptors and allows the CBD to bind to it, which is why if you take good CBD, not gas station CBD, sorry if you're the one gas station that has the good brand, but let's be honest here. If you take just good CBD, it might help. But if you take a really high CBD, low THC, that would actually be better. And smoking it, which, you know, I try not to, because smoking anything is not good for you, but that releases a bunch of other chemicals that help it all work together, which is why my stupid little one hitter that I'll take one full one hitter, and that's why when I had back pain, you know, it released the tension. That's why I could sleep better, because of the combination of stuff. And you're totally right. Like, don't go in this going, oh, well, I should try it. I'm going to go take a dab and see what happens next. Like, you'll probably be in the hospital. Just like I've never had caffeine before. Let me buy a large Monster Energy drink and see what happens. Like, I've never drank before. I'm going to go take a glass of grain alcohol to the face. Like, all of these things are terrifyingly scary and dangerous and could kill you if you do it wrong. But if you do it right, they could be a huge help, you know, as long as you get it right. But I've been lucky that I just never had an issue with drugs ever. My only drug is a chicken quesadilla with extra cheese and a good beer that's better than this one.
Sounds really good, actually. So hungry. Yeah, I saw somebody, some kid, he was hospitalized because he drank 7 shots of pre-workout or 7 scoops of pre-workout, and he had to be hospitalized, and they only found out he had done this because his TikTok had an upload his mom found of that he decided to take 7 scoops of pre-workout, whatever brand it is. I have no idea, but
and what's in
probably this? It's legal crack, basically. I mean, so the thing with the like GNC or any of like the pre-workout or any of that stuff is if it does what the box says it does, it becomes illegal. That's why it's a supplement, not a medicine, right? It's generally caffeine and beta alanine and like all these, it's just a bunch of alkaloids that they're stimulants, like a vasodilator or something to get a pump from like a what was the one everyone used, creatine, stuff like that.
Yeah, it was just huge in '99. Everybody who lifted weights was taking the creatine powder, just teaspoons of it everywhere. Yeah.
It's the 2021 version of that. It's legal gym meth that you drink. So, and it sounds like I'm being facetious, but there have been USADA tests where like athletes have taken these pre-workouts and there have been amphetamine traces found in them. So
this stuff is so scary. That's why I try not to go on weed rants, but I hate the stigmas that we still have. Like I don't want to allude to who it is, but I have a friend that's like high anxiety, and I said, hey, you know, why don't I just bring over some of the weed that I have, give it a try, you know, put like a couple droplets under your tongue, you don't have to smoke anything, I'll stay with you. I'm not gonna do that. That's a drug. Hey, fuckface, what do you think the 9 bottles that are sitting on your kitchen sink are that you can't live a day of your life without taking? A plant that grows in the ground that you could try once with, with in a safe environment, that's a drug. But the thing that you can't live without isn't? Like, I hate the stigmas of this. I can't wait till we all evolve enough to just speak to each other like humans without, pharmaceutical companies poisoning our brains with this crap. So... sorry, I'll get off my high horse for that.
I'm just picturing somebody as like a service provider at the pharmacy. As the person leaves with all the prescription, here's Bob. Hey, fuckface. Did you know these are drugs too?
No, I'm not like that. I wouldn't go up to a random person and say that. It would be funny as hell. But no, it's a close friend of mine, so it's somebody I was very comfortable saying that to. But they didn't get it. They're like, nope, they're not going to do it. I'm like, well, it's your choice. So, but... yeah, anyway, but I guess I'll get sort of back on topic and get off my weed rant. But so in all of your training, like in all the matches that you've had, we were talking about, you've been coaching, you're in all these different environments. Are there some memorable things that really stand out? And I guess especially, is there like a match that you've coached that really stands out? Is there like a favorite match? And I mean that in the very broad spectrum. It could have been some little kid that just, you changed their life, or it could be like a real pro fight where, you were ringside and got to be part of it all, or both. I don't really care.
I've been able to attend lots of the, world championships and, Pan Am championships. They call them the Pans now, over the years. And those are all cool. And there'll generally be something awesome that happens, or the ones that seem to like stay with me the most are just the guys that I had been coaching for years and years, that just, I'd see him every, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 6:30 in the morning. It'd be the same group for like the better part of a decade. And when a couple of those guys finally got out of their got out of their head and decided to go out and compete, and because I knew they'd be good, but they just weren't comfortable doing it, or never decided to sort of take the plunge, or were just nervous, because it is scary, right? You're going and you're doing the closest you can do to simulating like an actual street fight with someone, because the other person's trying to choke you unconscious or break your arm, right? The referee's job is to make sure that doesn't happen. Yeah, exactly.
And you have a bunch of people staring at you while you're doing it. You could be making a sandwich, and if you're not used to being, in the center of attention, that alone could mess with your brain. So you're triple scared at that point.
I mean, so I've competed at there's an arena out here. It was a big deal back in the day, called the Cow Palace, right? Mm-hmm. They've had like every concert imaginable. They're like, Elvis has been there, like Hulk Hogan's been there. So, and like I got to compete there at US Open a couple times, and to be able to do that, and to even win at a higher level and stuff, that meant a lot to me. Just the venue, and then just the experience in general. Like, Elvis has been here. I don't know. It just, when you walk around just warming up and getting ready, like you're going down the hallway and you see all these posters of all these awesome sporting events and, concerts and stuff that happen there. And I'm like, I'm a very insignificant part of this, but I'm some part of it now, from being a fan, just watching a thing happen. But I got to be on a podium and on a stage, and yeah, it's scary at first. It's scary until it isn't, and then it's just hard. I guess it's fun. You try to tune out people talking. You're trying to hear just like one specific person or two specific people that are trying to coach you, but you have the entire team of your opponent and your own team and friends and family, and then just the people watching as spectators, all screaming all kinds of ridiculous crap. And just to learn how to only hear your sort of people and it be the right thing to hear is kind of takes getting used to. A lot of times you don't hear shit. You just have to kind of go on based on what your gut is, or what you've trained, or what you've prepared. But in a lot of those competitions, it'll be like, You have a bracket of people that are your rough weight, like they're somewhere in your weight group. People cut weight, so you think you'd be like the same size, being within like 5-6 pounds of each other, and it's all over the damn place. And then there's an absolute division where it's the people that medal, or they medal in their own division, can go on and compete against everybody from every weight. And then you have like kind of like a best of the best, like the open weight, or they call it absolute championships at the end. And if you're bigger, that's great. If you're not, I'm sorry. So like, I competed at, I think the first one I did was middleweight, and the last time I did anything competition wise was super heavyweight, because you get older, you get bigger, right? So and so whenever it would come time for absolute, I'm like, cool. There's only from there's an ultra division, which is 222 pounds, and just as high as you, I mean, so you could legitimately be a 221-pound person going against a 400-pound person if that person existed.
They
It's
do.
usually
They're not getting in the ring with you, though.
every once in a while. They're like, you ever notice as you go about your day, just any average day, going to work, going to the store, doing regular shit, people are just, they're roughly regular sized people. You don't really see anything abnormal. Go to a metal or a punk rock show, go anywhere near the pit, and I promise you, there's someone that's 6'8" with a mohawk that's like 350 pounds. You don't know, you never see them in the wild, but go to one of those concerts and those guys exist.
I lived my childhood in a mosh pit, so I know exactly what you're talking about. That's my happy place. That's, I know I'm gotta have like ADHD or something. It's just the music, the chaos, the people. Like, it's my zen happy place where everything's just nice. And you're totally right. There's always one or two giants in there, and so it's pretty funny. And they'll eventually just wander. It's a good point. One of them, if they ever got into training, that'd be challenging to go up against.
So one guy is a friend of mine. He's retired. He was a Raider. I think he's with the Patriots now. He's got Andre Carter. Mm-hmm. He is a very large man. He's like 6'6", 275, and his whole body, he's basically one ab. Like, the guy is shredded at 6'6", and the higher 275, 280. And he was learning jujitsu. He was a white belt when I met him, and then he got his blue belt. And just training with that guy, I remember we were training together in LA, and he came back to the Bay because he's originally from the Bay. And I'm like, I don't know, come on down to the gym, just, introduce everybody. It'll be a great time. And so a lot of my students and sort of classmates or whatever, it's colleagues, whatever you call it, they see him walk in, and there's the look on their face like, what did you do? Why would you do that? He put such a beating on some of our guys. But the guys that that knew their stuff, could handle themselves, like, they did okay. But you couldn't be lazy, because the guy's only a blue belt in jiu-jitsu, but oh, by the way, he's an NFL athlete, and he's a super athlete at that. Like, some people are just bigger and stronger and faster, and when they learn the thing that you're good at, you're kind of fucked. Like, it's just how it is. But no, it was good times. But yeah, I have friends that are pro wrestlers now, and people from the NFL and MMA people and stuff, just because of jiu-jitsu, because that person might be on TV, but it's just the person. Like, they train there and they learn stuff, and now you're friends with a bunch of people that have cool jobs, because people are just people when you're on the mat. It's kind of cool. It's just random. But
yeah, well said. It's got to be so much more of a real thing, because like, there's absolutely a way to fake being on stage. I never did it. I was not even remotely close to the best guitarist out there, and I could barely sing, like, to the point where I could blend in enough where you don't know I'm singing, which is great. It's the best compliment I'll give myself. Good backup singer. But you could totally fake it. I saw a pro band open for one of my favorite bands that almost everything was pre-recorded. You could fake it on stage, you could do that, but there's no way you could pre-record your moves in a fight. Like that's not happening. It's impossible.
No, no, you your performance is gonna speak for itself. Just go to the gym and you'll see exactly what the hierarchy is within 10-15 minutes. The way, and it's like a pride of lions or something, and they can be lions of any size. They could be a less formidable animal if that's a little bit aggressive, but it's just like there's a natural hierarchy it's based on performance, like who is better than who, and or who works harder, and it's not always going to be the same. What's cool is say if you started today, somebody else probably started today too. And you guys both trained the same amount of time, and you guys were like neck and neck, but he was getting you. He was tapping you out quite a bit, and it was so frustrating. But then he got sick and he was gone for 3 weeks or something. Then he comes back, and all of a sudden you're kicking his ass now. You're like, oh. And that aha moment, because it'll seem like you're plateauing because you see yourself every day. You're you every day. Like, so the breakthroughs come at sort of random places, and like you won't notice you're doing better, but others will. And when it really stands out, it's just really unexpected. You're not thinking about it. There was a retro gaming related topic I wanted to cover a little bit. So with everything getting as popular as it has, one thing that got stupid popular in the last couple of years is candy cabs.
Yes, they're awesome.
No, they are. But everyone that was reputable that would import them and sell them is gone. Like they're not doing that anymore. And the sellers that remain, people should do their research first. I've seen a lot.
100% correct. Yeah, it's exactly like with the BVM and PVMs, where the entire reason I did the what to look for when buying a PVM was because of one seller intentionally selling garbage at full price, and it was absolutely terrifying to think about that. But yeah, it's 100% true. There are still good sellers left, though. There are absolutely still good sellers left.
It's sort of critical to point those out and to sort of celebrate them when they are that. But the other side of it is like with the BVM and PVMs, just like candy cabinets, to us, it's this awesome retro gaming awesomeness. But the people that are selling it to us, they're not selling retro gaming awesomeness. They're selling e-waste from Japan. They're getting it in bulk, and they're selling it here as it's this like awesome thing. And there's just
and I gotta say, if they were selling that as, hey, here's a broken candy cab for $400 or $300, you have to fix it. That's cool. That's totally cool. Maybe they're charging too much, but honesty is fine. But the whole, I'm expecting to get something that I could plug my arcade board into, and then just to find out it needs $1,000 worth of work on it. It's like, yeah, you're right. It's insane.
Yeah, I've had, there's a couple that are like more known that are still sort of doing it, even though the majority of folks that were importing like the Astro Cities and stuff and just candy cabs in general, they're kind of out of it now. They'll generally tell you like there's no steady supply of quality stuff. Don't even ask. Which is reasonable because it's true. I've had bad experiences where I won't name names because it's not really my prerogative to speak negatively yet. I kind of want to make a video about a particular experience we're dealing with right now with one of them that has gone as spectacularly badly as you could possibly imagine. And a friend of mine also is dealing with, but with much more cabinets than I am. I just had one Astro City 2 that the experience has been poor, and just dealing with a couple other sellers for one for a chassis and one for some other random Aero City parts. Like the level of service and the quality of parts that they're sending, but advertising them as like, oh, it's like new or fully restored or something. Just it's a big buyer beware. There, it's not like you buy a Super Nintendo and there's only a couple parts that could possibly break. Most people, you replace the fuse, the power connector on the back. Your Super Nintendo probably works fine. Clean the cartridge pin connector.
Right.
Like for the most case, unless you're looking for upgrades in terms of video quality, like it's hard to break a Super Nintendo. Candy
Correct.
cabs have lots and lots of moving parts. If you don't know someone that maybe has the skills to recap a chassis or to go through and make sure everything's on the up and up, maybe do more research and don't jump in. It can be a money pit, and it sucks when people they'll pick up something that looks good, they get it, and then it's not a reasonable expectation that that thing's going to ever be restored without dumping like another $1,000 or $2 into it, which sounds like a lot, but it was one thing a couple of years ago when you can get an Astro City for like $400 or $500. People are asking for like $1,800 for them now.
Yeah, and you know, if they're fully restored, that's an awesome price. But if you're getting e-waste, that's horrific. And it sucks because there's not much you could do, right? Any one person that has this happen, they post pictures, they have their, they talk about what happens. Whoever has the most followers wins. That's the rule of the internet. That's why I don't talk badly about a lot of people who do terrible things, is because I can't. If I get 50,000 followers and they have 120, they win. Everything I say is a lie because I'm jealous or whatever they say, they win. And then on the flip side of things, if I, as RetroRGB, posted hey, be aware of this seller, now they could bring me to court, and they're not going to win, but I still have to spend my own money to prove that I'm actually telling the truth. So I don't bother most of the time. I try to do general warnings and stuff, but it's hard because I don't like watching people get away with this shit. It makes me really upset to see all that.
Yeah, it's taken a lot of sort of self-control to actually not just put everything out, because the type of stuff that I'm seeing them do to people, and not just over a little bit of money, like some pretty substantial coin. A friend of mine just he imported a good number of Astros and some other stuff, and they were shipped in a container without pallets, without any protection on their side, just jammed into a container. And so that's landing here, I think, tomorrow or the next day. So I want to go over and take a look at it. Like, the guy is just livid, absolutely livid, and there's zero recourse. There's none.
And it's not, the very bad news is that it's not just happening to you. Like, if you told me a story about something that happened to you, I would feel bad and I'd want to talk about it. But you're right in that there are people that are really capitalizing on it, and it sucks. And they're still out there with the monitor scams, but you're right. Now they're getting into candy cabs and arcade machines and
all of it.
Yeah, and some of the dangerous arcade machines I've seen are pretty, because if you think about it, right, you think about somebody that doesn't really understand what they're touching, but they still understand that this is a CRT. CRTs are probably dangerous, so don't go poking around in it. Arcade machines, you have to open them up to plug your game in. And if something's wired wrong or if something's frayed, it is very plausible that you could reach your hand in there and get zapped. And even Jose, he's been working on this stuff forever. He's good. He's he's the person I call when I have questions. Even he the other day opened up a cab that had the wrong chassis installed in it. And Andy, who works at Brooklyn Video Games, he's putting his hand in it, and Andy screams like, "Stop!" And Jose just froze and watches like a mini lightning bolt go right in front of his hand. If he had kept reaching his hand in, he would have touched live power. And, I'm sure he wouldn't have died, but that would have sucked. So
yeah, well, because you don't know how he's going to react to it. It's like dealing with high voltage, even though most people would be like, it sucked, but it wasn't a big deal. But how's their heart?
Yeah.
Like, did you go through and do like a whole PET scan? Like, no, because that could be the little cardiac event that just downhill from there. It doesn't have to be, oh, it's not that much current. No, it is. It is. And it could just suck a little bit to being really dangerous for somebody. I've got the overkill, electrician gloves like that go up to almost my elbows, and
Good
then
idea.
they make one of those. It's for discharging CRTs. Basically, it's this giant probe thing that has a ground strap on it. So it's basically the equivalent of using probes and a multimeter to ground out. So it has a multimeter built into it. So as it discharges, you see it sort of discharging on the little built-in multimeter on it. I overpaid for it, but
That's still
I
awesome,
feel
though.
I feel safer using it because it already did the pop thing with the screwdriver. I should be fine. No.
Yeah, I learned that myself. Jose came over to help me with my 32-inch JVC, the one that's sitting over there. And I was like, all right, let me see if I learned enough from you. And I set everything up, and I popped the anode cap off. I was like, all right, awesome. And he goes, do it again. The anode cup is hanging off the side, and I touched it again, and it was a smaller pop, but it was still a pop. Like, it was like, wow, good call. That's why I asked you to come over and help. I would have just zapped myself. So
I've gone through and fully using that tool, fully discharged a chassis before, and right under the anode cap, how it has like those little grippy the little hooks on it. Yeah, if your skin is the thing that connects those points, if there's just a little bit in there, it's gonna suck.
Yeah,
doesn't have to be much. I've had it just little residual static get me before to where I'm like looking for some whatever I was holding in my other hand. I'm looking for it in my dining room for like 20 minutes because my natural reaction was just to blah, just to extend my hand and just throw whatever was in my hand because it barely got me a little bit. Even after I already discharged the damn thing, there was just a little bit of steam left in it, and it's dangerous. And I'm not an expert when it comes to dealing with tubes, but I know enough to know that they're dangerous and how to do basic things. Like, I'm not great. I'm a crappy artist as it is, so dealing with stuff like convergence is not good. Like, I'm not good at that because I can barely write my name without it being completely illegible. So I'm not the person to calibrate a monitor. Like, I can get the geometry okay-ish, but yeah, the convergence stuff I'm not good at. And then I lose my patience with it. But I can recap and replace transistors and debug basic electronics things. There's people that are much better at dealing with tubes than I am. I recognize that, and that won't always be the case, but they're cumbersome and dangerous, and I have like 100 other things that my time is sort of like kind of already allocated towards.
But on the flip side, right, you're also taking the time to learn how to do it. You've worked on your own chassis for your candy cab. You're learning how to do all this stuff. So, like we were talking about with the MMA stuff, you don't have to be the next Jose, or, you don't have to be the next tech and calibrating this stuff. You're just going to get it done and just don't do a shitty job. I mean, that's, it would be different if you were like, oh, my next career is to be a professional CRT modder. Well, you better be damn good at it. But if you're doing it for yourself, the goal is to not ruin it. Just do a good enough job, and then know that you probably have to do it again at some point, especially anything capacitor related. You're going to have to do that a second time in the next 10 years probably. But it's totally cool to be able to practice and to learn, and it's awesome that you're able to do that. And I'm so lucky that I was able to, for a lack of a better word, apprentice under people that are just so much better than me. It's one of these things where I could totally do a lot of the stuff that I talk about, but I just don't even want to anymore, because it's like, I'm going to have to bring that to have it fixed the second time in a year, because I know that's not so. I try to get better, but I always have a lot of respect for people that take the time to learn it and do it, and just don't do a shitty job. Or if you do a shitty job, do it again. right? Like if you wash your car and you're done and there's a whole bunch of dirty spots on it, you could walk away or you could just grab your sponge and wipe the dirty spots again, right? It's no different. It's just a little more effort with a CRT than it is with a sponge in a car.
Yeah, it's crazy how many people probably out there right now have learned how to solder from Voltar and other channels like his, probably mostly his for the people that do it correctly, and probably not so much for some of the others. He's got really good technique and he's patient with the way he sort of articulates different stuff. I don't quite get some of the reactions people have to him, but I think there's a little bit of jealousy from certain folks. Like he's really good at what he does, and I think that some people feel maybe offended or threatened by that because maybe they're not that good and don't handle criticism very well.
That's a lot of the people that introduce themselves as a professional modder. Those are the people don't like him, are usually the jealousy thing. But a lot of people can't separate the character from the work, which I don't agree with, but I could at least understand. You know, they think Lord Voltar is Zach, and they can't separate his silliness and his craziness from the work that he does. And I get it. I don't agree with it, but I do at least understand that side.
Yeah, he does really good videos, and the quality of work he does. I had him do an NES for me, or an AV Famicom a year or so ago. Came out great. I hadn't done an NES RGB, and I've seen his videos, but I'm like, well, I've got an extra AV Famicom. Why not? So the first one, I'm like, let's pay him to do it. Now I've seen his work. I'm like, oh, that's how he did that. Oh, cool. Like he does just different things, like technique wise, that I wouldn't have thought to do. Like when he did his GBS control build, how he took the module and like stood it on its side like that. I wouldn't have thought to do that. I wouldn't have thought it would have been able to sort of stand, you know, it would have been sturdy enough to do that. But it's pretty cool. I've learned a lot of stuff from his videos, yours as well.
He's going to be really happy to hear people say that, because, you know, being Lord Voltar, he gets a lot of shit, and that's why he does this stuff. He doesn't do it because his dream was to be a silly YouTube character. He does it because he loves doing the work and he loves teaching people. And the fact that you're able to spot that he did it that way, and you probably do it that way too if you do a GBS control, it's like, you know, that makes him really happy.
Well, he should be proud of that. Any negativity, I mean, part of it is, I mean, being able to weed through the comments and sort of be like, well, what's productive and what's just the price of having any sort of notoriety or any sort of following. Because for any great content creator, and it's such a weird world now, it's everyone creates content, right? Everybody uploads now. I thought it was the craziest thing. There's a Thomas Friedman book, The World is Flat, and it's not about flat Earth. It's the flattening he was a New York Times, was he, like an editor at some point? And this guy's been a writer forever, but he wrote this book, which is basically a history book that we're in. And by flat, he means like it's a flattened, like level playing field where we're all part of the same labor pool and things like that. Like we're collaborating across the country, but someone in Bangalore could be working on the same project as us, and it's flat anyway. Not like the Earth.
No, I totally get it, and it's a totally true statement.
So yeah, it's kind of like that. Yeah, I lost my train of thought. I haven't slept yet, but anyway, just that we all have this sort of level playing field now. It's pretty cool. But
so we'll wind this down, and I got a couple of questions for you on the way out. Then, and so cool. What is the thing that you've gotten in the past year-ish, retro gaming related, or I guess if it's not retro gaming related, but you're super pumped about it? Like, what's the thing that stood out for you so far as like, yeah, I'm really glad I got that?
Oh, so it's going to sound like the most shill thing, but at first when Mike advertised the 5X.
Hmm.
I'm like, like I like the OSSC because it's kind of Linuxy, and I could do all my custom profiles and get the Firebrand X stuff and upload it, and I can mess with all the JSON stuff. It's like the nerdiest possible thing for your console. Like, I just wish it had network access, but so I didn't buy the 5X when it first came out, and then he would update it, and then he'd update it again, and then he'd update it again, and so I got that. And I still like the Core U and the OSSC and stuff. That's cool, but the 5X is freaking awesome. It just, I don't have to sit there and scrutinize, like, is this the correct setting? Is this the right profile for the, oh crap, it's the other Saturn one. Oh, I only have 11 profile spaces or something. So like, the 5X is awesome. Let's see. I like the X Station a lot. That was a fun install. I'm not a huge fan of sort of these. I like flex cables a little bit more than having these quick solder boards, but I understand there's a cost difference, so it's fine. But it's really cool. I can play Symphony of the Night, and I've got like the Mem Card Pro, so I'm pretty stoked about that.
So it remembers your settings too, so that, if you tweak something for a 2D side scroller like Symphony of the Night, but then you want to go play like any of the 3D games, it'll remember, so you don't have to go sit there and reset any of your settings. Do you have a PS1 digital in that as well, or?
I don't.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
They always all their stuff sells out, so everything sells out so quick, right?
Yeah.
Even if it's not something great, like that is, but yeah, it was very sold out. The only, I think, HDMI mod I have right now is the the N64 digital, which is awesome. It's cooler than the console. I'm being very honest.
Yeah, that's what we talked about at the beginning. It's funny. It's funny because for anybody listening to this, like, it's what we started with, but for us, this was yesterday.
I felt like, I'm like, oh, for sure, someone's going to think that the order of the way videos were done, that I must have heard the one that just played earlier today before we recorded this. But like we discussed, I had no idea that Pixel Effects was going to be on your live stream today at all, because we recorded the earlier part of the podcast yesterday.
Before that, yeah, that's why I was joking about, like, I didn't pay you to praise it, but like legit, I knew I was doing that. The video's hopefully coming out on Saturday, so yeah, it's pretty funny.
I mean, the thing sold out, so I mean, there's not much I can really do for it. But if someone was on the fence about getting it, and they like the N64, so for me it's overkill because I'm still using the analog output, but the deblur is pretty cool.
All right, so two more questions before we get it out. What is the thing that has been announced that's coming out next that you're super excited for in retro gaming? Or I guess, anything, if there's a new vacuum that you're pumped about, we're all nerds, like whatever.
All right. So there's a lot of sort of games, whether they're, retro games or like retro influenced, or like if someone's sort of just doing that genre as a, one of these limited run games or whatever. I generally eye roll at most of those. I don't care. I mean, I don't. I know there's people that like the original soundtracks and the action figure and the art book and like all this stuff. Stuff. I'm not like an extra trinket person. I mean, sometimes it's cool, but like, what do you do with all that? I mean, every game comes with all these gimmicks now. I really just want the game. But when Limited Run announced they're doing Rondo of Blood as a US release, Castlevania Rondo of Blood for TurboGrafx CD US or whatever, I was legitimately pretty stoked about that. So that's a game I'm stoked about because it's one of my favorite games anyway. Let's see.
That's a great answer. That's a good one too, because yes, you could patch it yourself. Yes, you could burn it yourself. But anybody that's been in gaming for as long as we have knows what happens to CDRs after a while. And, a well-pressed, pro-made CD is going to last, from 20 to 100 years minimum, depending. As long as it's decent quality, it's probably closer to the 100 side.
Yeah, because what is better than spending $100 on the original game from Japan when you can spend $100 on a new copy that was reproduced with English fan translations? Now, I'm being facetious, but it's funny because I'm sure with shipping and tax, like it's probably pretty close to the price of getting the game used from, Yahoo Auctions Japan or eBay, whatever. But no, just that it has a real release when it should have had a real release the whole time it seems like one of those things like, why didn't they ever do that? That game would have been awesome. People absolutely would have bought that game. To now they're finally listening and doing it. So there's some feelings attached to that. Bloodlines for Genesis was okay. Castlevania 4 is okay. Dracula X was not good, but Rondo is one of the greatest games ever. So
that one is an awesome game.
Really is. I still play it. That's one of the games where I can just sit down and just sort of tool around and casually. Is Symphony of the Night's the same way, or like Street Fighter, like Street Fighter 3 or Street Fighter 2. I can just like be dumb for a few minutes and just play through on just about any console. And actually, I would have said except the 3DO, but now that they have that 3DO controller adapter thing, that thing's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty stoked about it.
Yeah, that's in my box of stuff that I haven't gotten a chance to check out yet. I got one sitting right here that I'm pretty pumped about. So
he only had red left, so I have a red one, and it works, but I have all the stuff to RGB mod my FC1. I just haven't done it yet. I put in the that ODE that you get by emailing that Russian guy, and then he emails you back and tells you to PayPal some random address.
Yeah, out of curiosity, how long did it take for that to arrive to you? Because people have told me a year, 6 months. Mine showed up in 2 weeks, and I bought it as like my personal account. I always don't. I try to never buy that stuff as, complaints at Voltar.com. Probably shouldn't have said my stupid email address out loud, but like I try not to buy it from that because I want to know what everybody else is like, because I don't want somebody to be like, oh shit, is Bob doing a review? I'll do it, let me send it really quick. So for you, was it 2 weeks or was it a year like a lot of other people?
It was a year. It was easily a year. I had to go find my 3DO.
Oh, I'm so sorry to hear that.
I know, I forgot all about it by the time it happened. Basically, I had just decided to, I'm going to bust out the 3DO and see how it's doing. And the optical drive wasn't working. But I figured it was there's a little worm gear, little plastic dealy. So I found somebody that uploaded an STL and just had it 3D printed using treat stock or whatever. I literally download the thing from Thingiverse, make sure it's the correct gear, just open it up, and then have you ever seen that? It's called treat stock. Have you heard of that thing before?
Mm-mm.
So basically, anyone that 3D prints things competently, you could offer your services on there, and then you could be in a list of people that can possibly take on a project. And I guess based on the amount of material, the type of material, then a price would come up with shipping or local pickup. And there was one guy in San Francisco that you could just do local pickup. So I'd have all like these random brackets for like, Game Boy Advance screen mods and stuff, and just stupid stuff like that. I'd have him print them all out, and it costs next to nothing. And so I did that to fix my 3DO. So I'm like, okay, well, at least I have a working drive now, and so I could play Street Fighter. But I got tired of pressing the start button to throw a damn fireball. So he came out with that controller adapter. I think that's .com or something. Is that what it is? And so I just don't want to play it compositor. So I've got the Japanese FV1. That's why is that difficult to say? FV.
Yeah, that is kind of weird.
FV. When like reading it, you know what it is, but FV. One. So mine has like the little 240 switch in the back, so it's not terrible with S-Video, but I bought the RGB mod and I just need to do it. It's just of the things that are like a priority, or that I care. I'll see the 3DO. I'm like, okay, well, here's the Nomad. We'll put the triple bypass in the Nomad and the nice LCD driver and all that. Like, that's fun. That's fine. Okay, well, oh, here's an SNES. We RGB mod that real quick. Okay, cool. We did that. Then you look again, it's the 3DO. You're like, I really just want to play the Street Fighter game, put it down. Like, do I really care?
And it's a hard mod, and you already have the 240p switch, so it's like, would you rather spend a couple hours playing the game or trying to do? So yeah, I totally feel you on that one.
It's kind of involved. I mean, basically, you have to make that little PCB sandwich with your upside down multi out and mount it, and I gotta get to desolder the original RF modulator and stuff. It's like, it's just a bunch of steps. None of them are particularly difficult. It's just kind of a pain in the ass. Like, it's going to take longer than you would think something like that should for like the cost benefit, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, totally.
I didn't grow up with the 3DO. Like, my parents
yeah,
weren't.
Same here.
My parents weren't like, what could I spend $1,000 on? Kid's really going to love FMV games or Encyclopedia Britannica or freaking Encarta. Like, those systems were so overpriced, and just, you got what? Crappy FMV games and an encyclopedia. Like, that was what it was. The CDI, the 3DO, I guess the Jaguar to an extent. Like, I'm not saying anything nice about the Jaguar. I know it has its fans, but like, that's their problem.
I see the good and the bad in all three of those. So
I mean, okay, there's a couple of good games on all of them. There's a couple of good games on the 3DO too, but like, it was $600 and the build quality wasn't all that great. And just look at the Zelda, just look at the CDI. Like, does that have redeemable qualities?
I am very sad to admit that I genuinely enjoyed Thunder in Paradise. I thought that game was one of the best FMVs I've ever played. Best is relative, right? It's a cheesy 90s FMV game, but I thought it was fun. I enjoyed the heck out of it. JT from Step by Step in there, that was pretty fun too. So I did actually really like that.
Is that Thunder in Paradise, like the Hulk Hogan boat show?
Yes. Yeah.
There's a Hulk Hogan boat show game?
Yeah, you got to see the stream I did. The opening of that is my favorite thing I've ever done. Yahel helped. Ronnie, not only did he record the bass, he recorded a bunch of the things, and then just like skip towards the end when, spoiler alert, like, I'm doing really good in the game, and all of a sudden my CDI just rebooted itself. Yeah, it was the perfect metaphor. But yeah, that was fun. I actually enjoyed the hell out of it. If you ever do play it with the mouse. Don't play it with the gun or the control pad or anything. But yeah, I genuinely enjoyed it.
So the steps that I'm going to take after this podcast, I'm for sure investigating that game and seeing if any copies exist for sale that aren't ridiculously overpriced. And at that point, I am buying it. And then I'll probably emulate it if I can. But I need a copy of Thunder in Paradise on the CDI. It's just the quirkiest sounding thing ever. I don't care if the console's good or not. That sounds awesome.
Yeah, the only thing to note is it's region free. So if you I bought my copy from the Netherlands or something, and it worked perfectly on a US CDI. You don't need to region lock them or anything like that. So
okay, yeah, I don't mind if it's in. So that's even like a more weird thing to have. I like having those just random things on the shelf. Like, what's that again? Oh, that's Thunder in Paradise for the CDI.
Yeah.
Oh no, it's in Japanese.
I've never seen a Japanese one, but I'm sure they made it.
Yeah, I hope it exists. I'm already buying. I've already like allocated the funds. I'm like, I don't need bread next month. I'll just get the Hulk Hogan game on the CDI.
Yeah, I would be very proud of you.
I know. I look like the biggest like pro wrestling nerd fan or something, but it was the shirt that looked the cleanest. And no, I'm kidding. It's these homage or homage, or it's pronounced homage, right? HOMAGE.
I'm pretty sure
they make different pop culture-y type t-shirts. but just the fabric, and they're so damn comfortable. Like it could say literally everything, like anything. I got another one that was blue, and then you could just get it without the design. So I bought a couple blank ones that were but none of those were clean. So, but no, they're just super comfortable shirts. So probably overpriced, but I don't care. I'm like a cartoon character. Once I find something that's comfortable and fits, like I'll just buy like that repeated thing.
You mean like somebody who owns 10 of the exact same black shirt? I wouldn't know what that's like.
Yeah. If something works, just do it. Like I remember I wore New Balance sneakers for like a number of years, and people were like, how do you still have those shoes? Be like, I just buy them every 6 months. Like I found one that I liked.
Why change it?
Through like college, I had like the same pair of shoes that looked new all the time because they were new all the time. I lived in upstate New York or central New York. They would get ruined after a couple months, and it's like, oh look, they're still on sale. Bought them again.
That's funny. So, all right, last question for you. So you said that your favorite match was when you played in the same venue that a lot of amazing people played in, and that was a very cool story. I liked that. But Beast would be very upset with me if I didn't ask you, what is your favorite match that you've ever coached?
Oh, I don't know. It wouldn't be anybody noteworthy, really. Probably just one of our guys here locally in jiu-jitsu. Like I always like going up to Sacramento with a guy, Dave Mitchell. He would always break people's legs, and that was always fun to watch. And I did what is it, like color commentary or play-by-play for a couple of those what is it, Flow Grappling, like the Fight to Win pay-per-view or internet pay-per-view events, and those were fun. Just calling the action and stuff. You'd have guys like Jake Shields competing and some bigger names in UFC and stuff. So that was fun too. Just different experiences like that. The coaching or the cornering, and I cornered there's this radio personality, Jason Ellis. He's on Sirius XM. Mm-hmm. Some people will know who he is. He has a kind of a cult following. My friend Kyle, who was in the UFC for a time, he was on Ultimate Fighter as well. Kyle Kingsbury. I cornered him in the main event of this pay-per-view thing they did called Ellis Mania in the Hard Rock in Las Vegas. So we got a green room with like, catering and stuff, and really nice, everything was beautiful. So it was me, my one friend Noad Lahat. He's UFC, he was ex-UFC, he's in Bellator now, and Filthy Tom Lawler, who's a New Japan Pro Wrestling, some sort of champion and ex-UFC fighter. So it was the three of us, and we're cornering Kyle for his main event boxing match, and the most just bonkers event I've ever been to in my life. And so I remember we were stuck there in this green room sort of for like hours because my buddy is at the main event of this event, and we're it's just kind of killing time at this point. Like we already ate, he's already kind of warmed up and cooled down twice. We're like, when is this gonna actually take place? And if you haven't seen one of these Ellis Mania events, like I don't represent them. I was just there cornering my friend, my teammate, my brother. But it was mayhem. They had musical chairs, but it was strippers and with boxing gloves, or like it was insane. Michael Bisping was there cornering some radio guy, and the radio guy was fighting another radio guy in like an actual MMA fight. But they had actual fights, but the whole event was insane. The guy Jason Ellis that put it on was like a extreme sports guy, but he also does MMA, and every year he likes to fight some big MMA guy, and he gets his ass kicked every time, but like he's getting better. Like he's not a small guy, and he is tough, but he's a crazy person. Like that's what it is. A very nice guy though. So I'm like, I need to just go for a walk. So I try to just leave this green room, which is upstairs behind the whole arena and everything. And you have to get through security. And as I'm walking through, Dr. Drew Pinsky is like walking the other way down the hall. And he's like, "Oh, hey, how's it going?" And just starts this like random conversation with me, just just sitting there shooting the breeze with Dr. Drew. And I'm like, does he think I'm someone else? Because yeah, we just had a good old time. I had 3-4 minutes just sitting there just shooting the breeze with Dr. Drew. Like, what the hell have we got ourselves into? Like, I don't know, man. It was pretty crazy. Bunch of strippers and roller skates punching each other in the ring, and it's musical chairs, and they're about to have a boxing match. Yeah, I think he sang or welcomed everybody to the event or something. It was all over the place, but it was on pay-per-view. I think this was the 11th one they did, and so in the main event, I was did the full walkout. It was sold out, and I was cornering my buddy at the main event of Ellis Mania, where he boxed the radio guy, Jason Ellis, in a Speedo.
Yeah, that's a story, man. That is not a common occurrence to have happen to a person. That's awesome.
If you look at the one pinned tweet I think I have on my Twitter, it's like that, them squaring off in the ring as the fight just started. Like, I think I took a video of that and posted it, but the backstage stuff and the we had like a training montage video where it was he just had 80s music blaring to get himself pumped up, to get warmed up. It was the most bonkers. What is happening? What did you invite me to now? I don't know, but it was the main event of a pay-per-view. Apparently people are really into that sort of thing, and he beat the other guy up pretty good. So
that is absolutely killer. I couldn't think of a better way to end this. That is an awesome story. Well, thank you for taking the time to do this 2 days in a row. Sorry that it kind of worked out that way, but it was great. And there was much less delay today than there was tomorrow. I don't know if you noticed that as well, but there was
I haven't been to tomorrow yet.
Yeah, wow. Whew. That's only my second beer too. A lot less delayed today than there was yesterday. So it made the conversation flow a little bit better. Those weird Discord pauses, sometimes that just... the internet isn't as fast as you'd like it to be, but this was cool as hell. I will obviously post links to, the Instagram and all your social media for anybody that interested in following you. But, this was cool. It's a good talk. I hope we get to do this again at some point.
Me too. I haven't really done much podcasting in a while. Like, I burned through 100 episodes of my own stuff so quickly, and then just sort of took a little hiatus, some family health type stuff that just took priority. So it's cool to sort of get back into the saddle sort of and do something like this. So it's been a pleasure. I've been a fan of your videos for quite a while now. So it's a real big deal to be able to come on and to talk with you about this stuff. So really appreciate all the work you're doing, having me on. It's a real pleasure.
Thank you very much. And if you're ever out in the East Coast, you come to New York, we'll roll out the red carpet for you. You'll get the golden nerd treatment. We'll head over to Arcade Brooklyn. We'll rent out the downstairs. It'll be good times. So.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, we've got to drag you out to the West Coast as well. I think what is it, like Sacramento gaming, retro gaming, something or other it's like the only thing happening in the next however long. I know they're doing conventions again. I think they just did Retropalooza, but hopefully this stuff starts back up again soon, and we can drag you out here for one of them too.
I would love to. That'd be awesome. All right, man.
Awesome, man.
Take care, and I will talk to you soon.